To follow along on the agenda while at home, please go to onsound.ca and look down the left-hand side, I think, for the agenda, and it'll take you there, and we'll try and hit the minutes as we go through. Number one, we did not go in camera tonight. We didn't have anything to cover, so we're right to number two, declaring that we move to the regular meeting. Are there any additional items that anybody wants to add? Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to send out a staff appreciation.
Oh, everybody. Okay. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question on consulting for the Director of Operations.
Consulting. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick comment on the Ontario Municipal Board hearing from last week.
Hearing Councillor Gregg, were you next?
Thank you, Mayor Body. I have two mentions, both perhaps relating to the upcoming AMO conference. One regarding costs of the conference and controlling costs of AMO events. And a second issue I'd like to mention tonight, which is a provincial plan which will add approximately $1 million in costs to the Owen Sound taxpayer every 3 years.
Thank you. Going this way, starting at the far end, Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to talk about the special event on Friday night downtown and its success.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd was next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make recognition to one of our local Olympic or Para-Pan American athletes. Thank you.
I think Councillor Thomas. I don't even have to look.
Yes, Your Worship. Strangely enough, I have an update on the CN dining car, and everyone will be happy when that's done with, I'm sure. And I would like to talk about the Bayshore race, which is coming up in a couple of weeks here in Owen Sound.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Wright.
Thank you very much. I have two items, Your Worship. One is the an item on the consent agenda, and the other one is the AMO conference.
And I have a couple of items. One question about the federal election, which is October 19th, and it happens to be a Monday that we have, at the moment, a meeting scheduled. I have a question for the clerk with regard to our ability to do lotteries. And the third matter is today's fire. Our procedural bylaw says that we raise it now, but it's dealt with other business later. I wonder if everyone would consent to me going through the details of today's fire now. Yes. And seeing an indication of yes. As everybody knows, there were multiple fires set in Owen Sound overnight last night. The first fire, I think, was at 2:45 at the McKay building downtown, followed by about 3:45 to 4 a.m., 3 fires at buildings and a couple of other attempted sites in Owen Sound. We were called in at staff with Mr. Backing, Mr. Ritchie, and Ms. Coulter, and Sharon Edwards, my assistant, at approximately 4 to 4:35, sorry. Owen Sound Police Services were present throughout all of this. Owen Sound Fire Services, Inter-Township Fire Services, and Chatsworth Township all came in and worked together to fight these fires. Amazing coordination and teamwork amongst all of them. Presently, our police force and fire marshal, the Ontario Fire Marshal, are in town with a full squad investigating all the fire sites. Grey County Emergency Services was present this morning. Approximately 10 to 12 people were taken to hospital throughout the day for minor smoke inhalation. All of them released. So no major injuries that we are aware of, which is good. Victim services were set up with the Red Cross at the Bayshore Community Center, where our staff had the building open very early in the morning. Our partners, First Student Buses, had school buses set up to shuttle people from the area to the Bayshore Community Center. City staff were on very early to cordon off or protect the runoff water from the fire from going into the drains and contaminating the river as much as possible. Also put up roadblocks to control the roads. We know there were 15, in the end, 15 residences, separate residences, that were uninhabitable. I've already covered that, 10 to 12 minor injuries. We wandered down, I don't know what time this morning, to talk to some of the people that were out of their house at the Bayshore Community Center, and it's amazing how resilient, perhaps partly in shock, but how resilient they are. They had family coming, they had friends coming, and they were well looked after by our partners at Victim Services and Red Cross, who looked after contacting everyone from the Y for housing for these people. It's a sad day when we have deliberately set fires anywhere in our city, but especially residences that harm so many people. People that don't need it, don't deserve it, and they're the victims. At the same time, it's pretty easy to be proud of our city and our community, the way we come together when we have to. We talked about this in the winter with frozen pipes, and it's all came clear today. At one point, I'm looking at a house that is totally burnt out and gone, and next door there's a house that's on fire. And Jim, you do this every day. I don't know how the heck you do it. There's firemen in the attic. We can see them through the window fighting a fire. Way up there, could have been trapped fighting a fire from inside in an attic to keep the fire from spreading to that next house. It's amazing. Somebody puts on Facebook that they need size 15 shoes for a kid and somebody victim, Salvation Army, and somebody's on there a little while later saying their staff is just paid to buy the shoes. We will stand together. We will get through this. Everybody needs to be vigilant. We need to watch out for each other. We need to watch out for our neighborhood. Send a signal that we're standing together. Send a signal that you're watching out for each other. Leave your light on in your front porch and your back porch for the next few days. Send a message to whoever the person is that thinks this is fun, that we're watching, we're ready, we're together. As a community, stand together. If you see something that doesn't look right, if you see people that aren't in the right place doing things that you don't think are right, phone the police immediately. Together we'll get through another challenge. We always do. That's what Owen Sound's about, and that's what makes us special. So it's a great community and great to watch it come together, and the coordination between all the services and people looking after each other today. Anyone got any questions on that? Good. Thanks. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof? Sir, Mr. Backing?
Your Worship, just before you proceed on with the agenda, I have 2 additional reports that need to be...
Oh, I missed you. I went through council and didn't go to staff.
Need to be brought to council's attention.
Anyone else over there? Sorry. Ms. Coulter?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also have an update regarding the recent OMB hearing.
Sorry.
The recent OMB hearing.
The OMB hearing, thank you. Clerks, we're okay? Good, thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, I saw none. Thank you, it's number 4. Number 5 on the agenda, 5A, is confirmation of minutes from the regular meeting of July 20th, 2015.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 20th, 2015 as printed be adopted.
And all in favor? That is carried, thank you. 5B, minutes special meeting of July 22nd.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodds, that minutes of the special council meeting held on July 22nd, 2015 as printed be adopted.
Great, all in favor? That is carried. Great, thank you. Number 6 is resolution.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, that City Council now go into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're now in Committee of the Whole, down to number 7, which is public meeting. I believe we need a motion to adjourn the council meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wright. All in favor? That is carried. Now declare that the public information meeting is open. I declare the public meeting open. This is a public information meeting being held to inform residents of the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West from 12th Street West to Alpha Street, which is slated to begin in late summer of 2015. The project will involve replacing infrastructure that is beyond its useful life, including the roadway, water main, sanitary sewer, storm sewer components, and municipal services within the limits of the municipal right-of-way. A brief presentation will be given in a minute by city staff and the project engineer from GM, Blue Plan Engineering Consultants. Following this, there will be an opportunity for residents to ask questions. Thank you. Deputy, go ahead, Ms. Stovall.
Your Worship, in accordance with the city's policy, review of all significant engineering projects at a public meeting, notice of this public meeting regarding the 6th Avenue West reconstruction was published on the city's website on July 29th. Further, a media release was directed to the media and direct to residents. Notices were circulated 2 weeks ago by city staff. In addition, notice of the public information meeting was published in the Sun-Times newspaper this past Friday. I would ask those in attendance to sign the sign-in sheet for communication purposes. Personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001. The information collected will be used for purposes related to the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West, the project regarding reconstruction. Questions about this collection should be addressed to the Deputy Clerk, myself. One written inquiry was received by email by city staff prior to this meeting on July 31. That was from a resident who is still connected to his neighbor by a hose. His inquiry has been responded to by city staff and is attached to the agenda. A further inquiry was received more recently related to the bus transportation route. City staff have informed that they have also responded to that inquiry. Those are all my comments.
Great, thank you very much. Next is presentation by Mr. Webb from the city staff.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Just a little background on this project. As council's well aware, we had a number of water mains and services that were replaced throughout the city because of the damage caused by freezing this past winter. Those particular replacements and repairs were dealt with through an emergency procedure. This project was a little different because as we were investigating the condition of the water main, we also discovered that the sanitary sewer is in poor condition, and there's actually 2 water mains on the street with a high and low pressure system. And as a result, we felt the best approach would be to fully engineer the design and construction for the replacement of the water main as well as the sewer, and tender it out with the hopes that we would achieve more beneficial pricing. I think the results of the tender actually bear that out, because the price is on the low tender or very close to the estimate of the cost before the project was started. So with no further delay, I'll introduce John Slocum. He's a project engineer and principal with GM Blue Plan's office in Owen Sound. He'll provide a brief overview of the project for council and members of the public.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Welcome, Mr. Slocum.
Your worship, members of council, thank you for having me. I understand this is set up. I'm not familiar with all the IT here, but I think I have the right button, and I do. So, as Chris said, this is a public information center meeting to discuss this this project. The purpose of the project, really, as Chris mentioned, was to, I guess everybody remembers the cold winter we had. It's hard to remember now, it's in August, but finally getting some summer weather. But back in February, we had some pretty cold temperatures, and there were several areas of the city that were affected by frozen water mains, and those frozen water mains in many cases split and became unusable. So this, I think, represents the last of those projects. There are two remaining water services that are, I think one of them was mentioned earlier, I think there are two remaining water services that are connected up to neighbors through water supply hoses. And this project is going to address that remaining deficiency. As Chris also mentioned, there's a failed sanitary sewer on the street, and we're going to replace that as part of the project. And there are a few other deficient infrastructure components that we're going to address while we're in the area. So the water mains themselves, there are two existing water mains in the street. As Chris mentioned, there's a high pressure system and a low pressure system. The high pressure system delivers water from the bottom of the hill up to the top of the hill and services homes up above the hill as well. The low pressure system was originally set up just to provide pressure service to those lands below the hill. So the 6th Avenue represents sort of a divide between those two pressure systems. The main split occurred 13th Street and 6th Avenue West. That area was isolated by city staff at the time, capped and isolated, and the balance of the system was restored to operation, but there's a dead zone, if you will, at the intersection of 13th Street and 6th Avenue. The high pressure water, that was on the low pressure water main system. The high pressure water main has had a number of repairs over the years from what city staff have told us. There are many repair clamps on the system, and so it was decided through the process that water main should also be replaced at the time. We were in there digging. There's an existing apartment building. This is the area of we call the old hospital, I guess, apartments. There's one of those buildings is serviced off of the low pressure side of the system, and we're going to convert that over to the high pressure to improve flows into the apartment building. The intention also of the water main replacement project is ultimately to eliminate the low pressure system. That's sort of a more global process that city staff have been working on over a number of years, to get rid of the low pressure system and replace it with this higher pressure system. In this case, we would have to, there'd be a lot of other work that would have to be done in order to achieve that goal, so we're going to do a small diameter interconnection until a bigger project or a future project can address elimination of the low pressure system. And the high pressure system will also connect to newer water mains. Alpha Street, I think they were built 10 or 12 years ago, and then another connection point at 12th Street, which was prepared last year. So we'll actually connect the loop of new water mains. Sanitary sewer is a 450 millimeter diameter. It's a clay sewer. It's cracked along its crown, so the whole pipe is caving in from the top. It's probably a remnant of the old combined sewer system when they used to use one pipe systems to take everything out to the river way back in the day. And so we're going to replace that. There's several old and abandoned sanitary sewer services connected to that pipe that are leaking groundwater into the pipe. Some of the manholes on that sanitary sewer are an older brick version. We build them out of precast concrete now, so that'll be an improvement there as well. And there'll be service connections to the apartment buildings that will be replaced as well as part of the project. Other components it's a minor storm sewer works. There's a manhole, we have in quotes, it's not exactly what we would call a manhole. It's buried under the asphalt. We knew it must have been there somewhere, and we did some camera inspections to find out that there was actually something there. We're going to replace that with a more standard unit. There'll be some curb improvements along the west side of the road to define the road edge, where there is none at the present time. There'll be sub-drains to put in the road to protect the road base, and a new asphalt road surface. This is completely illegible, but it's idea of the scope of the project of Alpha Street being on the left side to the north, and 12th Street on the right side to the south. There are a whole bunch of bits and pieces and components to this one. There's a lot of congestion of the work that's going on in there because of the two water mains, sanitary sewer, existing storm sewer that we're going to mostly keep. It's a relatively good shape concrete sewer. A little bit of a blow up to show more of the details of the intersections at again, Alpha and 13th Street, connection points toward the left side, connections to the two water mains, sanitary sewer, and a little jaunt up 13th Street there. On 13th Street, there's the one service noted in the hatched area there, and on the north side, and another one on the south side, where those two water services will be replaced and brought back into the regular service. And 12th Street, this again the south end of the project, will be tying into the water main that was just replaced on the hill there, the catwalk last year. And that's what I have.
Good.
So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Questions from council? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lemon.
You're replacing all the sanitary sewer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, but the storm sewer, you said it's not in bad condition?
Your Worship, the storm sewer itself is a concrete pipe sewer that tends to last a little longer, and is in fairly good shape based on the camera inspections that were done.
But when the contract's being done, they will be checking on that storm sewer to make sure that when you dig down, that there's not some weaknesses, I assume.
Certainly be looking, we'll have inspectors on the job when it's being built, and we'll keep an eye on it. But yes, based on the video inspection, we ran a camera up through the pipe, and it looked good from the inside.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. So the next portion of the public meeting is to seek comments from the public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to ask questions or have input in this project? I'm seeing none. I'm not even going to call it 3 times because I don't see anybody, almost don't see anybody moving. So I declare the public meeting closed and motion to reconvene to the council meeting.
I move that the regular council meeting of August the 10th be reconvened.
All in favor? That is carried. Great. Thank you. We are down to 8A, which is a deputation, and I'm going to go down to the other microphone. We're presenting the facade grant to Joanna and Greg Bottrell, who have attended. Welcome.
Thank you.
Joanna Bottrell and her husband Greg are in attendance this evening representing Heartwood, which is a neat new store on Main Street. It's in the 900 block, 2nd Avenue East in the city's downtown. Mr. and Ms. Bottrell are receiving a facade grant for work on the front facade of the building, including the iron and wood projecting sign, shepherd hook light pendants, and new wooden fascia. You did an amazing job revitalizing the front of your building. It is unique. It's pretty neat. Going off script, you've got a neat story. I don't know that everyone knows the Bottrells, but they came to visit parents at a cottage one summer. Many summers ago, found a farm to buy, moved up here, found a building on Main Street to buy and a business plan to put into it. and moved into town, and are part of that new vibrancy of downtown that's going on right now that's got a really neat energy, and they're right in the middle of it. Store on the main floor of neat things that have been used, recycled, changed. And Greg has a plan upstairs to put in a concert hall that's almost ready.
Yeah, we're going to call for inspections for late next week, I think.
So great additions to downtown. So the city welcomes you and your very unique retail business to cities downtown. We've got pictures up on the board. Pretty neat sign. Either of you want to say anything? Or will you say something? It'd be great.
Well, I'd love to say thank you very much for believing in our idea and being able to envision what we have envisioned. And I just think that council and City Hall putting money into revitalizing downtown's facades is an amazing thing to do. And I really think between the DIA and Boost and all the new stores and some of the older stores, we're going to make it even better than it ever has been.
You are. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, we very much appreciate, despite looking at some of the hard times that the city's going through right now, that you're still helping out as best you can and stuff like that. So hopefully we can do something good to help the city as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. The second item under B, 8B, I shouldn't call him Donnie anymore, I guess, should I? Don McMillan, Festival of Northern Lights, annual report to council on the activities, budget, and financial statement. Mr. McMillan, when I was growing up as a little kid, lived up the street, so that's why he's still kind of Donnie. Welcome. I'll get you to push the button just in front of you there to turn on the little red light. Good, there we go. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. For the record, my name is Don McMillan, and I was recently elected as new chair of the Festival of Northern Lights. As most of us are aware, our previous chair, Mr. Doug McKee, passed away earlier this year. Doug's enthusiasm and passion for the festival will undoubtedly be hard to replace, but hopefully I can provide the same enthusiasm and leadership to continue the ongoing success of the festival. The past meeting in June of our board, we unanimously passed a motion to dedicate this year's festival in memory of Doug. And then over the past 8 or 9 months also, we've been going through quite a transition at the board, as you can appreciate. It's been difficult, I think, to maintain a flow with the board. We've recently had some changes myself, and we've also elected a new vice chair, Jamie Walpole, which I know most of you know here because Jamie's a current employee here at City Hall. And there's some historical significance to Jamie as well. His parents actually were the founders of the festival back in 1957. In fact, Jamie's father is still a volunteer member after 28 years. So we're quite excited to have Jamie join the board. I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank the city and council for their ongoing support, financial support actually, of the festival. Without their support, the festival would not have survived and continued to be the ongoing success that it is today. And I look forward to sitting down with the city in the very near future and negotiating a contract for the 2016 year. The financial statements, which I believe you have in front of you, are they up on the screen as well? Oh, yeah, that's the one. The statement was, our financial statement was audited by Collins and Barrow back in June, and it is their qualified opinion that the, it's their qualified opinion that the financial position of the Festival of Northern Lights as of March 31st, 2015 were audited in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for a not-for-profit organization, and there were no nonconformances or any irregularities as a result of the audit. If there are any questions regarding the financial statement, I'd be more than happy to try to do my best to answer them for council, but I'd like to point out one area before we do so that is a concern for the board going forward, and that is our decrease in revenue as a result of attracting new sponsors. This is an issue. We're down significantly from last year, almost $16,000. It's following our meeting in June, it's the general consensus of the board that we need to find a dedicated resource that can recruit new sponsors. The challenge, however, is to find a source of revenue to compensate that person. We're in the process actually of making application to the Ontario Trillium Fund in hopes of obtaining some funding to help us in this regard. I've also personally approached some local industry seeking a corporate sponsor to help with additional funding, but I have no confirmed commitment as of this date. The board's also taken a close look at expenses, and we've carefully reviewed, and we've actually reduced some expenses from last year, primarily in advertising, but this can have a negative impact going forward, as advertising and marketing the festival could possibly lead to fewer people wanting to come to visit. So that's our main challenge right now, is funding. We're always looking for volunteers. As each year goes by, our volunteers, as I mentioned, we have some that have been with us now for 28 years, and they're slowly stepping aside. So our objective is to try and attract some newer, younger people to the board, and we have some ideas that we're going to discuss at our board meeting tomorrow night, getting some more of the local schools and that involved to hopefully get some younger people on board to continue helping the festival in the future. Having said that, does council have any questions for me?
Councilor Lemon, go ahead.
Yeah, there was one question. On the first page that was up, it indicated that you were deemed not to be eligible for Trillium funding.
That was last year, Peter.
And I'm wondering why, because it was structured so you could get Trillium funding. Or at least that's what I thought.
The restructuring was done after the application, the previous application. That has been done, and hopefully this year's application will be accepted. Also, the Trillium Foundation has changed their policies regarding funding for organizations like ours. And their funding grants now are for a one-year period, not a two-year period. So, like I said, we're in the process of submitting that application. Deadline is September the 1st, and hopefully this time we'll be successful.
Thank you. I just was wondering about that, because when they incorporated the festival, that was one of the key things they wanted to achieve, was the eligibility for Trillium and other foundation grants.
Correct. I believe, Wayne, you had some input into helping us restructure ourselves accordingly to, I had in previous minutes, do you recall?
Not at this moment, Don, but if you say I did, I'm sure I did.
Long day.
Sorry.
Councillor Kepke had a question.
Thank you for your presentation, Don, and thank you for stepping forward to take on the chair position. And also, I want to extend thanks to those new members out there. I know there's a great dedicated group of board members, as well as those who work behind the scenes all year long to make the festival such a special and great event. I do have some questions on the financial statements, but I will save those till the meeting tomorrow night It's just some discrepancies I might see in the unaudited summary that was presented to the financial statements presented by the auditors, but I'll address those tomorrow night at the meeting. Also, the issue of the granting, I believe, Mr. Ritchie's remembered.
Well, I didn't remember, but your volunteer and my IT manager has pointed out in the minutes to me, the issue with Trillium was, it was as simple as a line item in the city's budget. We had always shown, and it was just historically, because at one time you were a division of the city, that it was a division of the city and not called a grant. We are changing that allocation for 15 and future years strictly to be a grant from the city, and you are a standalone corporation. So it's quite as simple as that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, seeing none. Oh, Ms. Coulter?
Councillor Kepke indicated that she does have some questions that she'll bring up at the board regarding the budget. The city's agreement with the festival does require that the city council approve the festival budget. So perhaps once the budget is finalized after your meeting tomorrow night, it could come forward to council with the minutes of that meeting for approval, so that we're continuing to meet the spirit of that agreement.
Good, thank you. Go back to Councillor Kepke.
I do notice that the Festival of Northern Lights minutes have not been coming to council. Should they be coming? Okay, then that needs to be clarified with Leah. Thanks.
Good. Mr. McMillan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking that on, and it's a pretty major event in our calendar every year. And it's great that it continues. So if somebody wants to volunteer or become involved as a sponsor, they should contact you how?
Well, I think the best way to contact any issue to do with the festival is to contact Leah Wanch here at City Hall. Okay. Leah has a number here and an extension. And then she can forward that information to me. That can be in regards to volunteering or to sponsorship. And I'm also working, as I mentioned in my presentation, myself to try and secure some corporate sponsors locally. So I'm going to work diligently at that, and hopefully it'll be successful.
So the easiest contact to step forward for Festival of Northern Lights is to contact Leah Wanch here at City Hall.
Festival Administrator right at City Hall.
Perfect.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you in November.
Thank you very much.
If not before. Thanks. Great. Number 9 on our agenda is public question period. Are there any public questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Number 10, correspondence received. For which direction of council is required. I'm seeing no correspondence unless any's been added late. Number 11A, reports. Report from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism with regard to former 8th Street East Water Reservoir.
Correct.
Mr. Furness.
So, Your Mayor and Worship, this is a follow-up to the public meeting that was held to discuss the surplus property. And so the public meeting was held. Direction was given to resolve some property boundary issues, which we've taken some time to do that. So the report is here for council's decision to move forward with a further public consultation, or they can accept the public consultation that has occurred. And at the next meeting, we would declare the property surplus and move forward with selling this property for development.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question for Mr. Furness. In your report, you said we need to determine an asking price for the property. How do we do that?
Normally, we could get an appraisal, or we can determine that with the real estate agent. I think in this case, I was going to have that discussion with the city manager, but we could make that decision and have an appraisal done if council wishes.
And so just so so the process would be, tonight we're declaring it surplus. A bylaw on that would come forward next meeting?
That's right.
And at that time, we would decide on what the price would be?
We could, yes. If that, I would get an appraisal done, For unique properties, you have the option. We can have that discussion with the real estate agent, or we can get a professional appraiser. In this case, we could do that. I think the direction would be for the next meeting to pass a bylaw, if that was the direction, on declaring it surplus. But we could also bring forward that information on an appraisal and set a price.
And I'm not saying if an appraisal is needed or not. I was just trying to get the process for how it comes. And the other thing would be, the public meeting we had was some time ago now. If someone was concerned about this matter, since the bylaw wouldn't be passed till next meeting,
They could bring it forward if they wish.
They could bring it forward
Right.
by that next meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Mayor Body. I have a couple concerns on this report here. The first, and I think most important, is it wasn't until Thursday afternoon that 5 new members of this council got to see those public comments for the first time. It was maybe taken for granted by incumbents that this is something you've seen, but that does not make me too happy to have that come to my attention now. So I don't support the recommendation as it's worded right now. There is some public comment there showing that there's some interest in permanently closing the lane, but perhaps selling it directly to those that are most closely living next to it. I thought it was good to see their public comments and their input for the first time here in the weekend. So I don't support that part of it. I do support, as I had previously, the intentions to look at declaring it surplus. But at this time, in light of those public comments that I think is relatively new information for some of us, I'd like some more time to review that. Thank you.
Councillor Lemon?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have to stop up and close the lane and declare it surplus before we can do anything with it, which might include giving or selling or whatever combination thereof of the lane property to those people. We still have to go through this process of declaring it surplus, because if we don't do that, then we can't dispose of it to them if we decide to do that. That's really a separated issue. I understand your concern, and I wasn't aware you weren't aware of the public comment, and I'm sorry about that. But stopping this part of moving to declare it surplus would allow us to dispose of the land the way you're suggesting, or some other way. I don't know exactly which ones are interested, and they can come forward, and that could be sliced off if it's not going to adversely affect the rest of the property. But they have no legal claim on it, per se.
I'm going to go back to Mr. Furness to speak to the issue.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. So that was the purpose of the report, was to, we were halfway through a public process. So we had collected all the comments, we had the public meeting, and in the report, the last line, alternatively, one of the alternatives was to council could have additional public meetings. I was recommending, just to put a recommendation on the table, that you go forward, because I think the public meeting that we had was fairly all-encompassing in collecting those comments. But that's up to council if they wish to have further comment. We did decide that we wanted to keep this parcel as one parcel, including the lane, and in order to sell the lane as part of the overall development parcel, we have to stop up and close it. So it'll be up to whoever purchases the property, if that is the direction, if the lane is to be used or not. We had done some property adjustments and clarifications with some of the owners based on the survey work where there was physical encroachments, a shed and a wall. There are other comments of people who have other opinions, and that's what's shared tonight. So while I was recommending you move forward with declaring it surplus, one of the options alternatively would be to have a further public meeting.
Councillor Thomas.
Well, I'd just like to wade in and say that I certainly understand where Councillor Gregg is coming from, because the letters and comments were a revelation to me when I read them on the weekend. I was not aware And I guess that what the overwhelming feeling I had was the concerns of that neighborhood for the loss of a green space that has traditionally been there forever and that has been utilized as a park space by that neighborhood. And I guess that my question would be, what has been done, what can we do to address those concerns of those neighbors in that area who have very real deep-seated concerns about the impact of the sale of that property on their quality of life?
Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe in Steve's report, he's pointed out that there are a number of other green spaces in that area available to those residents, as there are to residents of all of the city of Owen Sound. Certainly, if council wishes to have another public meeting on declaring this surplus, staff are not opposed to that. I think the comments would be very similar to the ones you've reviewed, but if you would like more time and if you would like to hear those in person, staff certainly, as Steve has mentioned, our recommendation is that we move ahead to get a bylaw to declare this property surplus. That doesn't mean council will sell the property. It just is declaring it surplus to our needs. Council then will have the option to decide, do they want to put it on the market, and how do they want to do that? That is a future report. All we're saying now is, in staff's opinion, from our review of that property, it is surplus to the city's current needs. There are other green spaces in the area. It's mentioned in the report, but certainly perhaps a full public meeting would allay the fears of the local residents that they're going to not have green space in their area and point out exactly where that other green space is.
Mr. Thomas, anything further?
I think on that basis, I could certainly support the motion to declare surplus, but I would like to see the issue of that neighborhood addressed a little more in depth by this council. You know, it is a process that's been going on for a couple of years, but you know, having lived in that neighborhood myself and having taken my kids tobogganing on that little hill so many times when they were little, I mean, I understand the connection that a community builds up for the green space around it.
Councilor McManaman, thanks.
Thank you, Worship. If I understand the recommendation correctly, or what Mr. Ritchie and Mr. Furness have just said, if the recommendation was to be moved and passed, it would bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting declaring it surplus. It would bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting permanently closing up and stopping that laneway. And we would bring forward, and it would be brought forward some sort of a report on how we would evaluate what the asking price of that property would be. Am I correct in those three things?
Right, point 3 was, and this is up to council to decide, list the property and determine a price and move forward. But that could be separated out.
After.
Absolutely after, yes.
So if there were additional concerns from the neighborhood, that 2 weeks, is it anticipated that would be in 2 weeks? The bylaws would come forward in 2 weeks?
Yes.
So that would give neighbors that have not had an opportunity to comment in that 2 week period and come forward with concerns. I would agree with Mr. Ritchie. I think or perhaps it was Mr. Furness that said the comments there, I think encompass a wide, the range or the view of the neighborhood. I'm not sure we're going to get new information, but having said that, you never know. That leaves 2 weeks for us to get new information. I mean, moving forward, it's a simple discussion. Is it's surplus to the city needs? Is the city interested in selling it, or are they going to retain it as a park? That's really what we're going to be discussing, but that'll be in 2 weeks' time. So having said that, I'll move the recommendation.
Good, thank you. Councilor Gregg, to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Bai. If I could just seek some clarification. I thought I understood Councilor Lemon's comments, but did Mr. Furness then contradict what Councilor Lemon had stated, in that lane would then be solely part of the overall parcel and cannot be separated at a later time?
We would be stopping up and closing it, and it would become one parcel, right?
That does not preclude, excuse me, just to clarify, that does not preclude if at some point we wanted to assign the lane to the neighbors. We still can do that even though it's one parcel. You just, the municipality has the right under provincial legislation to subdivide land, and we could do that.
Councilor Gregg.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm going to call the question. Oh, Councillor Kepke.
Sorry. Based on the discussion, is it not a little premature to include items 2 and 3 at this point? Do we not just want to declare it surplus at this time through the one bylaw?
You have, sorry, Your Worship. I think if you want to declare it surplus, close up the lane and declare it surplus, you have to close up the lane first, then it becomes one parcel, which is then declared, the whole thing is declared surplus. It then becomes, if you sell the property and it's developed, how it's configured is all done through the zoning and site plan process. So really, it's a developable parcel. If we want to hear more feedback from the community, certainly we can do that.
My concern, though, is with point 3, where it says, list both the reservoir lands and the lane. And are we at the stage of listing it? No. By the discussion, I'm not hearing that. And the motion includes that.
Mr. Ritchie.
Through your worship, I would certainly agree with Steve. 1 and 2, I believe you should, we would recommend you do tonight. Certainly 3 does not need to be decided tonight. That can be decided at a future date. If you want to sell it, how you want to dispose of it. Right now, we're just getting in a position that you can make that decision. Without 1 and 2, you can't even make that decision.
So the motion on the floor, though, is 1, 2, and 3, and I'm not in favor of 3 at this time.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. And just to clarify, would it be appropriate, and thank you for pointing this out, Councillor Kepke, to move 1 and 2 and that number 3 be added and that a report come back at that time on those items?
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
That's your new motion? Okay. All in favor? That is carried. Good. Thank you. Number 11A2, report from Manager of Economic Development Tourism, confirmation of the sale of former court building to Southbridge Care Homes.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a information report for council to receive. It just confirms the sale of the former court building and jail facility, outlining some of those details. That building has been closed and is in the no longer city property, and the developer will then follow the development process.
Okay, questions? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. If I could ask Mr. Furness, especially for the viewers at home, so we are selling the property for a nominal amount as opposed to what it was listed for. Why is the city doing that?
I think the important, thank you, Your Worship. I think the important point here is that we're selling it as is. And when you look at the total investment that's going to come back to the city, there's a proposed new build and redevelopment. So when you're thinking $10+ million additional redevelopment of the property, and they're required to take down the jail. So as part of the as-is element, I think in the end, this is a very good value to the city, and particularly when you look at the value of the construction and the assessment that will result from the development.
Mr. Ritchie.
Thank you, Worship. If I could just add, certainly the recently adopted city strategic plan encourages the city to work with current businesses in Owen Sound to retain their business and to grow their business. I believe this maneuver helps the city to do that. We have beds in Owen Sound that this will retain. It will certainly reinvest in that area. It will create hopefully an instant stimulus to the economy through the building of the site, and a longer-term stimulus to the economy, local economy, in supporting that business in town. So I believe it is certainly touching a number of objectives of our strategic plan, moving the city forward.
Good, thank you. Other questions? Back to Councillor McManaman.
Thank you for those answers. They were excellent. The only other thing I would add is the heritage building aspect of this, which wasn't touched on. The best way to preserve that heritage is to have an adaptive reuse of it. The city is not a very good landlord for heritage buildings. That building requires millions in upgrades, millions that we don't have to put into it. We're spending right now, it says $15,000 in operating for, and that includes repairs. I think you wouldn't have to be too much of a builder to look at that building and say that it needs a lot more than $15,000 a year. There was a time we were spending far less than that, not in the not too distant past. So I think on the heritage elements, those items, that's been sort of a, some people have been concerned in the community. I think moving forward, the heritage elements of that, the facade, the historic facade, and some of the heritage elements in the building will come through this council, how they're addressed, how they're dealt with, and that'll all be part of a public process. So that was the only other element I would like to add to those other comments. So with that in mind, Your Worship, I'll move the recommendation that we receive the report.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 3, with regard to purchasing assistant water main sanitary sewer replacement 12th Street West to Alpha. Mr. Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. The staff recommendation is that the contract be awarded to Herald Southern Construction, who submitted the lowest compliant bid in the amount of $468,770 plus HST, and that council pass a bylaw at this evening's session to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the contract documents. As you heard this evening, the project is the final project that is needed to restore the damaged pipes as a result of last winter's frozen pipes problem. Tenders were called in accordance with city policy. 3 bids were received. The lowest compliant bid was received from Herald Southern Construction, and in the amount of $468,777 and 0 cents, excluding HST. The pre-tender estimate of the value of the works was $455,000, so very close to the actual bid amount. Staff are satisfied that our value is being obtained for expenditure of funds.
Councillor Kepi, thank you.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Questions? Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have 2 quick questions here. Is this construction going to be happening soon? Obviously, it's going to be we're hoping to get this done before winter hits again. So is this going to be in the timeline to be done in 3 months?
Your Worship, yes, the project will be done before the snow flies. It will be done before the snow flies, Your Worship.
Okay. We're going to hold you to that one. I guess in the second one, it's a little bit off topic from here. Do we have a little bit of an estimate of what last year's water damage those frozen pipelines were? Because I'm just looking at this. This is another $500,000 that we're adding onto our bill that the Ministry of Municipal Housing and Affairs has said no to us. So I was just wondering, where is this kind of putting us in from last year?
Through you, Your Worship, the estimates that were provided to the mayor before he went to Toronto to meet with the minister was $2,050,000 for round numbers. That amount includes the award of this tender.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wright.
Thank you very much. This, there was nothing in the budget for this project prior to our damage, was there?
That is correct, Your Worship.
So this is an additional cost to our ice damage? Yeah, thank you.
It is, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor McManaman.
Your Worship, and just to follow up on Councillor Dodd's comment, so the $2 million price tag for this emergency, Your Worship, what was the minister's response to that request for fund? How much money are they going to contribute towards this disaster?
It's still 0.
It's still 0.
It's still 0.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that was right.
Yes, yes. There won't be any money coming from disaster relief from the Minister of Municipal Affairs Department, Ministry of Municipal Affairs. Yep. Please
However, we can meet him at AMO when we see him, when they're hosting their cocktail party, we can all go and visit him.
Councillor McManaman.
Sorry, last point to Mr. Ritchie. So this is $500,000. The total bill is $2 million. The way we're going to fund this or finance this issue, when will that come back to council, or how will that come back?
Through Your Worship, it will come back to council later in this year, but it will be a combination of looking at other projects this year. Mr. Becking has already given us a report that some projects will not get completed this year in water and wastewater, as well as perhaps using some of our reserves that we've built up literally over the last decade, as well as perhaps debenturing or moving into future budgets. So it's going to be some combination of all of those. I can't tell you exactly what that combination will be yet. Further report will come later in the year when we know exactly how some of our other projects this year have turned out.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Dodd, you had another one?
Sorry, I just kind of wanted to touch base back to what that public question was regarding earlier on. We had that public question from the citizen who said that he was the last hose that was still on there. So is he still going to be connected to that hose for the next 3 months until this project's done?
Yes, Your Worship, he will. Unfortunately, we don't have any other choice in the matter. But by the time that the project is finished, he will be back on the normal service.
You've stayed in correspondence with him?
Say again, sir?
You've stayed in communications with him?
Yes, we have. We've been keeping him informed as we progress with the design. He's fully aware of the schedule for construction, and we'll be keeping him abreast of any changes as they occur.
Okay, good. Oh, Councillor Kapke.
And in his letter, he asked a question of the new pipe going at a same depth or different depth, or has that been answered?
It has, Your Worship. The new water main will be installed at the proper depth, given the depth of frost penetration that we experience in this area.
Good, thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 4 is report from the Director of Community Services with regard to lease renewals with Transport Canada for certain lands within the harbour. Ms. Coulter?
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council is aware, we do have several leases with Transport Canada for lands in the harbour. 3 of those are presented tonight for amendments, and those include the land that include the Kelso Beach walkway or bridge, the boat launch, as well as Kelso Beach Park. Each agreement extends the term, has an annual increase in rent, and there is something new. It includes an environmental effects determination report, which the city had to sign to outline the uses that are permitted under the lease and any mitigation measures to protect the environment in case of accidental spills, leaks, etc., with respect to those uses. So Mr. Becking and I reviewed those together before they were signed and sent back to the ministry. So the recommendation is that Council pass a bylaw to authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute those amending agreements.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Wright?
Yes, I will move that
recommendation. Oh, thank you, didn't know. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Number 5, report from engineering technologist with regard to water service agreement, Crown Rust Protection Center. Mr. Becking?
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council is aware, we provide water services to certain areas within Georgian Bluffs. There is a service that goes out onto the Sunshine Strip or Sunset Strip that services a gas station facility. When there is a change in use as a result of a policy that was established back in the 80s by the PUC, a new agreement has to be established with the new property owner to reflect the change in use. The staff recommendation is that a bylaw be passed to authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute the updated agreement to reflect the new use that is proposed for the property.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question, just more so for clarification. Considering this is outside of the city limits, I know there's a out-of-town extra tax that's on there. Would you be able to just clarify what that is for those services that the water services we provide outside of city limits?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Extra water charge for service?
Yes, the rate is double the normal rate, and that reflects the additional costs that are incurred by the city in providing those services.
And there's obviously an intake and an outtake in these services?
That's correct.
Well, I'll be more than happy to pass the recommendation.
Do you want to move it first?
I'll move it.
Move the motion?
Move the motion.
Great. Perfect, thank you. Councillor Lemon, you had your hand up.
Well, I think it's important to note that the service already exists to this property. We are not breaking any new ground. And I think it would be wrong for us not to approve this because businesses go through change of use, properties do over time. And I agree with what we're doing, but I think we certainly should approve the recommendation because that's an existing business that has had water for many years. I can't remember how long it's been, but it's been a long time. And I don't think we should change it.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 6, report from manager, water, wastewater with regard to second quarter report. Mr. Prentice, welcome.
I got this going.
Switch to that now. I'll be presenting the second quarterly report for 2015 on the status of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. We received the attached quarterly report from the consultant on July 24th, 2015. The photos included in that attachment are somewhat out of date, so I've taken a couple of new ones and we'll be showing you those as well. This particular graphic is something that myself and the Director of Operations came up with. We're calling it a dashboard, which is meant to give a instantaneous appreciation of the progress of the project on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, as the case may be. The lines you see on this particular graphic, the red ones, are the second quarter progress in 2015. The blue ones are the progress as of the end of the first quarter of 2015. My staff report essentially hits on about 5 of the key aspects or key important things that were presented in the consultant's quarterly report, and I'll discuss those before I get into the dashboard. So the key points touched upon in the quarterly report are the general status of the works and significant activities on site, a high-level schedule status and financial status, which is really what this is about now, this new graphic. The monitoring of risk factors and subcontractor supplier performance, and there's a couple of things to report on that aspect, and then of course the photography of the progress of the project. So as of the end of the second quarter, the project is about 30% complete in terms of time and money spent as well. Most of the contractors' burn rate, we're using that term to describe the amount of money they go through every month in construction, has been focused on the construction of the main BAF building. An awful lot of concrete has been poured there. Additionally, several minor buildings have achieved architectural block and roof completion, and also considerable mechanical work has been completed as well, and progress in the electrical work is improving. So the first thing to report about, the outfall diffuser project is in progress with the consideration given, as we all know, to the redesign to accommodate a found shipwreck. The intention at the time of writing of this report is to complete the in-water work prior to Salmon Spectacular. There had been a concern on or about a week and a half ago on the contractor's part that they may not be able to achieve that. Consequently, the Director of Operations pulled counsel just to learn if that was acceptable. Now they're optimistic that they should be able to achieve that, so hopefully we will be done before Salmon Spectacular will be out of the water. Having said that, if they run into any roadblocks, they may actually come forward and request that. So right now, though, it's looking pretty good. The valves, whose delivery was crucial to timing of this outfall project, were received. They were expedited by the supplier and the contractor and the consultants, and their efforts are appreciated in this regard. One issue which has arisen, which you may be aware of, again through circulation by the director, of the lack of soils information during the design of the outfall, and that necessitated a redesign, including helical piles to prevent long-term settlement of one structure out there, the central manhole that essentially bridges the old pipe structure and the new diffuser structure. That was provided in an email to council on July 24th, and the consultant, due to the oversight, has offered to pay 50% of the estimated $60,000 cost for the helical piles. It's notable that if we'd had that information during the design, we would have needed something like helical piles in any case. So they at least came forward in that regard. One issue which is flagged in the quarterly report is the performance of the electrical subcontractor with respect to planning only. Please note that their quality of work and health and safety performance are very good. There's no question of that. But with respect to the critical path item of the new hydro feed of the site, as well as the general efficiency of their performance and the performance of submittals, which is basically providing plans of how they intend to do work to the consultant reviewing them and getting them back. There's been delays and inefficiencies in that regard. Now, to be fair to them, the foundation issue, which you may recall, the switchgear building held things up in any case there. However, we're talking about additional factors since then. So one solution which is being implemented to prevent a schedule impact is to provide temporary power to the digester support building. That's on track to be done, and that's to be done at no extra cost to the city. The digester support building needs to be online and operational before we can demolish the administration building and continue building the bath structure. It's the critical path item. Now, it's notable that Graham Construction and the subcontractor have been working together to improve performance and have had meetings at the highest levels to do so. It's hoped this performance issue will be resolved by the time the next quarterly report is prepared. Currently, the intention is to have the site ready for Hydro 1's work for high voltage by September 21st. That's the deadline we're watching very, very closely with the contractors. So keep you informed of that as that progresses. So we'll focus on the dashboard now. It's useful to think that the first three lines there are related. So the first is the percent of schedule completion in calendar days from the beginning of the project to the scheduled end, the performance deadline of the project. The second line is the planned construction budget used. In other words, how much money, according to their original cash flow projections, they were supposed to have accomplished at this time. The third line is the actual construction budget used. So in interpreting these bars, it's notable that the construction achievement is somewhat less than the original planned cash flow, but that the progress is accelerating. In other words, they're getting better as the quarters proceed. One significant factor, and I can emphasize how much, is the winter that we went through. So that is a big factor in that regard. It's also notable that they are accelerating their progress more. Their cash flow for July, for instance, is now at 2.6 million. The original projections around this time were 2 million a month, so we're definitely making big progress there. The use of the cash allowances and the contingencies, if you compare them to the actual construction budget, certainly the contingencies are in line, and the percent of cash allowance used is very healthy. So those are two good signs as well. The engineering budget and the percent of the engineering contingency utilized, which are the last two bars on this. It's notable that if you look at the engineering budget consumption versus the construction budget consumption, you have to bear in mind that the design phase of the job was 56% of the engineering fees. Consequently, that entire line is shifted over 56% before the contractor even shows up on site. So it's got to be borne in mind. Having said that, the engineering budget use and engineering contingency use are at least in the same order of magnitude. And there is actually a component of the engineering contingency which is already allocated but won't be completed, spent until the end of March, whereas the actual engineering budget use is current costs. So in a way, there's a gap there as a result of time, if I explain that clearly, and I hope I have. We are, as staff, concerned about the engineering fees burn rate as well. At current rates, the engineering budget of 1.2 million that remains would be consumed in 16 months instead of the 23 months remaining in the schedule. This is counteracted to a great extent by the fact that currently the consultant is in the process of detailed submittal reviews. The general contractor, in the process of building the works, is required to submit shop drawings to the engineer for review. They come from suppliers and subcontractors. Those documents in a project of this size, there are very many of them. There's probably going to be about 400 of them in total. We've got 280 of them have been completed. Now, that in turn requires a great deal of internal work. Some of the submittals are just a couple pages. Some of them are hundreds of pages. So that is one reason why at this point in time we'd be expecting the consultant to be using more than the average burn rate. But that's not to say we're not concerned as staff. So to express our concerns in that regard, staff, myself and the director, attended a meeting with the consultant on July 21st and have specifically requested the consultant provide a plan to complete the project within the constraints of the engineering budget. We hope to have something to say about that plan at the time we present the next quarterly report. So that's an area of concern as well. Communication strategy component of this report, it's the continued intention of staff to provide these reports on a quarterly basis. There had been one change since the writing of this report. There had been a plan to have a media communications event coordinated with the federal and provincial levels of government on the site in August. The calling of the federal election has made that impossible. It's no longer permitted. So as a result, it was our plan or intention to have council visit the site possibly in early September because we had intended that council see it at the same time as that event. That event's been canceled, so we'll try to set something up for council to see the site in September in lieu of that other event. I'd like to jump to the photos now. So some of these are dated. The site does not look anything like this now, but if you can see the date on the photo, that was taken in April. So this is the initial preparation of the base granular subgrade for the BAF building itself. This is the beginning of the base slab rebar for the cells. That was taken near the end of April, so they made a considerable amount of progress in setting up rebar for the pours. This is quite a bit farther along in terms of the construction of the works. That's in May. And now we're into June with this photo of the BAF building. An awful lot of concrete, and the quality of the concrete is very good, both with respect to aesthetics and testing results as well. That's been a factor through the entire project. The concrete's been good. This is the phase 2 demolition of the existing administration building to clear a way to construct more of the BAF building, specifically the backwash storage tank, which is the deepest part of the new structure. This is the architectural veneer installation on the biosolids pumping station. It's the shoal ice block, which was selected to match the existing that was put in 2010 on the inlet works when they were built. So all the buildings will look the same, but they'll look very nice for a sewage plant. This is just a shot of some of the indoor mechanical. It's just a taste. There's a tremendous amount of mechanical work done on site, which simply can't be seen from outside in the tunnels that were existing there, as well as in the new buildings. So that specifically is the biosolids building. That's the new digester support building. Quite an early picture. The architectural block, the shoal ice block, is on that one now, and the roof is complete. So electrical work can begin in earnest. One issue with electrical work, it's not good to start it without a roof on it. It doesn't like water, to say the least. So here's a photograph, aerial photograph, I believe was taken in mid to late June of the site. That area right there where you see the excavator beside the, first of all, gives a sense of the scale of the construction. This is the existing admin building, having been the phase 2 demolition undertaken. This excavator is digging out the deepest part of the site for the backwash storage tank. And there essentially is just really another view of the same at the same time. And again, another view. So you can see it's getting quite a bit more crowded on site in terms of the number of buildings on site. And you can see the progress with the biosolids support building there. And again, this is the south site, the biosolids building, and there's a biosolids support building there. thought I had my newer pictures on here, but I do not, so my apologies. I had taken a picture of the effluent diffuser structure. It's now underwater, so you won't be able to see it in real time, in real space, unless you put on a scuba suit. That concludes the quarterly report, unless there's any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions, Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Your Worship. And Matt, or Mr. Prentice, you talked about the $60,000 overage and 30 being covered by the contractor. Where's our 30 coming out of?
The contingency.
The contingency budget. Okay, so these numbers, they probably don't include that.
They don't include it. It's important to note the dashboard is work constructed and built and payment certificate authorized for the period ending June. So anything that's happened since then just isn't reflected in that. There's a gap, or a delay rather, when you process these things. So for instance, I just received the July payment certificate for the period ending July. So for me to have presented tonight, the July numbers would have been too much of a rush. I wouldn't have had the associated engineering numbers and wouldn't have been able to parse through them to create the dashboard that quickly.
So we're roughly about a third of the way through the project.
I would say right now, because of the 2.6 million that they just sent us in for July, we're probably 35% is my guess.
And you'd mentioned about they think they'll have it done by the Salmon Spectacular, the in-water work.
The outfall work, yeah.
If they don't, what's the impact on the Salmon Spectacular?
There was a graphic that I think we provided to council in an email recently that shows that the area impacted by that on the overall bay would actually be very small. So it wouldn't have that much of effect, and it's a very visible site. It's awfully hard to miss, and it's lit. So again, though, the hope is we don't need to go there. Now that we've asked the question of you and we're prepared for the possibility, that's not when you end up with problems.
But we will stay in contact with the Salmon Spectacular people, just to keep them up to date on the progress of that particular.
As soon as we think that we're going to lose our ability to meet that schedule of getting out of there before Salmon Spectacular, we'll make yourselves and them aware. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Becking, you've been in contact with Salmon Spectacular, or which one of you?
Not personally, Your Worship, but we'll keep them abreast as we develop.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Good, so I think we need a motion to receive. Councillor Gregg is moving that. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll see you in another quarter.
I've got another report for you, though.
Oh, good. Do you want to give us that next report? Thanks.
It's essentially it's a very brief report whose purpose has really just been covered in the one I just gave you. But really, we've prepared the dashboard figure for the purpose of presenting information on the project in a nutshell very quickly. That was asked for by the Wastewater Treatment Plant Ad Hoc Committee, and we're going to continue to give those to the committee during our monthly meetings, and then bring them to council in the committee's minutes package. So in other words, you'll see that particular graphic more often to give you an impression of where things are at any given moment. And that's really the only purpose of this report, is to introduce that concept to you.
Just to be clear, is that the report 15-074?
075.
Oh, there we go. One more. Sorry. Okay. Councillor Thomas?
I'd move acceptance of the report.
Good. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. So down to number 8, I think. On the agenda, from the report from the environmental superintendent with regard to agricultural lease agreement. Mr. Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Juneau property is leased out for agricultural purposes. The rental agreement lapsed last year, and staff put up a notice of intent to lease the property out. We received one inquiry that was interested in the lease of the property from a Mr. Adam McCall. Mr. McCall farms lands adjacent to the city property. He indicated that he was interested in continuing, and the annual rent is $371.66 plus applicable taxes, and it will be subject to an annual increase of 1.5%. The staff recommendation is that a bylaw be passed authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a new 5-year agreement for the lease of the property.
Councillor Larry?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation.
Any questions, comments? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 9, report, Director of Operations, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, expression of interest. Go ahead, Mr. Becken.
Thank you, Worship. We received notice from the province of the next intake projects for the program, as council will recall, program. Thank you. As council will recall, the program was established by the province last fall. It consists of 2 components, a component that is a grant component that we receive on an annual basis based on a formula. The other is an application process. If you're successful, the program can fund up to 90% of eligible costs to a maximum of $2 million per annum. Last year, the city applied for a project. We considered 3 at that time, including the River Precinct project. There was, as you recall, the center at the college, and there was also potential for work out at the airport and some resurfacing work. The projects could be brought forward again. As you're aware, we were unsuccessful the last go around. Staff are suggesting that you could go with any one of those projects, or you'll recall that the Canada 150 program, which we haven't heard anything back on. We applied for 3 projects, including the reconstruction of the parking lot at the Julie MacArthur Centre and the Harrison Park roadway, as well as upgrades to the entrance to the library and the gallery in the Cenotaph area over on First Avenue West. Of the various choices, I think council will agree that our roadways are in tough shape, and we're facing a mounting bill with respect to the rejuvenation and rehabilitation of our road infrastructure. We have reviewed the data from the last update of the infrastructure asset management database, and we've identified a number of projects totaling something in the order of $1.5 million that could be salvaged by a resurfacing if that resurfacing were to take place in the next 1 to 5 years. Given the relative needs, staff are recommending that a resurfacing project be applied for, consisting of, I believe, 40 or 50 road sections throughout the system, as an opportunity to get a leg up on the backlog of road needs in the system.
Good, thank you. Councillor Thomas?
I'd certainly have no problem moving this recommendation. During my very brief 3 meetings on the Operations Committee, I did get to experience the sad litany of road work that needs to be done in this community, and I think that this is something that's certainly worthwhile.
So we're moving that. Comments? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. As council will recall, we discussed this item several months ago, and we have over 200 sections of road that are in poor, at-risk, or failed state. Our current budget amount in this year's budget is $100,000 for repaving. Even if we were to, which would be very difficult in tough financial times, triple the amount we were putting into our road repaving, we still wouldn't come anywhere near tackling this issue. So certainly I support this initiative, and let's hope we can, as Mr. Beckham said, that's a good way of saying it, get rid of some of the backlog so we can actually, on an ongoing basis, try and tackle this in a more, in a better manner. But right now, we need to get rid of that backlog.
Any other comments? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Number 10 is oral or verbal report of Deputy Mayor Wright from Grey County Council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I do have a short report here. I guess the most important information that I can give you is that we have a new CAO at the county, and I'm quite sure you all saw the press release. It's Kim Wingrove, who comes to us from Guelph, Hermosa, with about 20 years' experience in municipal and government affairs. She's, I think she'll be she'll do very well at the county, and she will start the end of September. And I hope that you all get to meet Ms. Wingrove at the AMO conference. Unfortunately, the election call will delay the SWIFT, or could delay the SWIFT project, in that the funding may be delayed now or even unavailable if we're not sure about that. Plans for the new addition for the county building, as we already know, we found out we can't put a third floor up there, and the committee is now looking at perhaps going out front. It will be cheaper if we put the addition on out front, so I believe that the committee is having a look at that. I have been trying to arrange a tour. I believe that staff at the county are working with our CAO to find a time when we can go up, so I'm quite sure that some of you have been asked about the county building. Some of you may think it's unnecessary. I feel that if you go up and take a look at what the problems are, you may understand the need for an addition up there. So we'll see about that further. I want to just talk a little bit about Grey Roots. We have a new curator and director out there. Petal Furnace was the successful person. Petal's doing a wonderful job out there. And she has arranged the new logo is being finished now at we have supported that new logo, and if any of you haven't seen it, it certainly is a drawing card for Grey Roots. So Grey Roots has done extremely well out there this year, and hopefully you can all get out and have a look at that museum. It's doing very well. And that is my report.
Good questions from anyone? Good, thank you. Going to 11B is consent agenda items. Ms. Stobo, do you want to give us a overview?
Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening, there are planning notices from other municipalities where no report was triggered. There are no minutes of boards and committees for receipt. There is correspondence received which is presented for the information of council, and a listing of that appears at section 11B3 of your agenda.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Someone want to move receiving those items? Councillor Lemon had his hand up first. Councillor Lemon, moving to receive those?
Certainly am.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Stobo. You're doing fine. Minutes of boards and committees for approval. Minutes of Accessibility Advisory Committee. Who's chairing that? Councillor Lemon, are you chairing that?
Yes, I can present that. Your Worship, there's a constant review on buildings and the need for greater accessibility. One of the things that has been demonstrated is the changes to the bus are going to make the accessible bus more accessible, which is good. One of the things that we will be reviewing is actually, which I'm going to be bringing up at the next meeting, is the condition of the elevator at City Hall, which is less than stellar, because quite often the door doesn't close on the third floor. And if somebody's coming in the back door, they have to ring the buzzer and wait for somebody to come, and that's not really accessibility. Excuse me. Hopefully that can be dealt with. The other thing is a review of the committee is due to do a review of some work done by staff on policies and procedures for specialized transit, and that will be a fairly thorough review because there are concerns that it's got to reflect the needs of the people who use the system.
Good, thank you. Questions from anyone? Seeing none, do you want to move the approval of your minutes? Councillor Lemon is. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Number 2, minutes of Canada 150 and Owen Sound 160th celebration. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first meeting of the Canada 150th and Owen Sound 160th was held recently, and they reviewed a report from the Director of Community Services regarding the terms of references and next steps. Lots of ideas were presented for events to take place, but we needed to get the terms of reference laid out before we could carry forward with any of the ideas that were presented. There were some amendments made to the terms of reference, and those have been included in the terms of reference that were presented to council as the attachment. There will be 3 council reps on the committee. We're recommending 2 non-council reps, and that we advertise for public interest for the appointment of 2 non-council reps. We're also recommending that the Cultural Advisory Committee be kept updated since they probably will work hand in hand. And we're also doing a public call for partners for the event. So other than that, unless Ms. Coulter has more to add, I'll move the recommendation to approve the minutes.
Move approval. Councillor McManaman, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, Your Worship, and more just a comment for the committee. I've seen the minutes you're talking, or you're thinking about considering a 10-day celebration, and I would just, the 150th, as being on the 150th committee, I know that was quite a lengthy, it was a 10-day celebration for the 150th, and I would be cautious with that. That was, they hired some full-time staff to deal with that. There were hundreds of thousands of dollars raised in sponsorship to help pay for all of that. So I would just be, when I look at the budget from the federal government of $150 million over 2 years spread across Canada, anyway, just a word of caution, that's all. I'm not sure a 10-day celebration, anyway, you might want to think about that, that's all. But I certainly like the idea at the end of a street dance downtown. That sounds like a good idea to me. So anyway, that was all, just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Kepke has moved for approval of those minutes. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 3, minutes of City Hall Accommodations Ad Hoc Committee. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. The committee had discussions about the location of City Hall, including the Great County Building. County staff informed us that adding a 3rd floor for our administration just wasn't feasible. It's certainly not feasible to build a new City Hall. The current location at our City Hall is extremely important to our downtown, and we're looking to renovate our own building. So at this point, the committee has made the recommendation to council that we renovate our current building and retain the services of an architect to assist in a work plan and design to carry out a staged renovation.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Lemon.
I appreciate the condition of this building, but I really feel we should have first a review of the existing building in terms of somebody independent, not a city employee, as to, for instance, we've got spalling on the bricks in a number of areas around the building. That's a really major problem because eventually those bricks are going to come right out. And there's issues like that I'd like to hear from somebody in the construction industry, to hear their opinion on how these problems can be solved before we start redesigning let's find out about solving some of our problems. And example, air circulation within the building. We know it's bad, or non-existent, but I think this is premature until we've had somebody in the construction industry talk about how the facade of this building can be somehow stabilized so that for instance, there's no bleeders for water behind the brickwork in this whole building, which is requirement under the code.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Ritchie.
Thank you, Your Worship. The committee has looked at two studies that we had, previous councils had initiated from building condition experts. And the committee feels it's time perhaps to move on now, but we have two reports detailing exactly what is required in the building, what the building's needs are, and now the committee feels it's time to move on and hire an architect to help us assess how we will address those issues. So certainly we can provide those to council independently, individually, but they were independent studies by building experts.
I think, Mr. Ritchie, we delayed making a decision in this committee a couple of months ago so we could get those reports, so we've all received them. Yeah, thanks.
That's correct.
Councillor O'Leary?
Just in response to Councillor Lemon, I think that's one of the reasons why we're getting an architect too, is to find out some of the things that we don't know or what we can do with this building and what we can't. And you know, we're certainly not getting the shovels out and starting to do renovations right away. We're just looking for more information. With that, Your Worship, I'll ask that we approve those minutes.
Thank you. All in favor?
I just like to
Hold
comment.
on. Okay, sorry,
And I
Michael.
don't disagree with getting the information. What I'm afraid of is that renovating this building may prove more expensive than any of us think. That's my concern.
That's exactly what we're trying to find out.
Good point. Thank you. All in favor? Good. Carried. Thanks. Number 4, Minutes Community Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Body. Within the last community planning minutes, we had 3 facade grant program requests, which were approved by committee. The first of which is facade grant approval to Parsons Photo Source in the 1000 block of 2nd Avenue East. The second is 824 3rd Avenue West, which is the former U.S. Consulate building, just located south of 10th Street. I've got my addresses mixed up, but the former U.S. Consulate building is one of the buildings which the committee approved a facade grant request, as they're going to do considerable work on repairing the porch and front entrance to the building. It's it's been purchased to a new owner who's made quite a commitment to restoring that property. And the third was at 824 3rd Avenue East. And it was actually, it's in front of the Cornerstone Youth offices. They made a presentation, deputation to council a couple of meetings ago. This building is on the west side of 3rd Avenue East, needs considerable brick repair. So committee approved those 3 facade grant requests. We're still within the existing facade grant budget for the year. We also did have an additional item mentioned regarding chimney swifts, which is a threatened bird species, which has I guess been witness to nest in the chimneys of the former courthouse building, now under new ownership. And our staff do feel that moving forward, the committee and council will be able to, as well as staff, will be able to monitor the situation and work with the new owner on protecting any at-risk species from an environmentally sound protective point of view. So with that, I would move receipt of those minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of those minutes? Carried. Thank you. Number 5, Economic Development and Tourism Advisory. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Your Worship. lots to report from this meeting. It's a really busy committee. We've got lots going on. I'll try and get through as quick as I can. We had a great deputation from Gemma Mendez-Smith, the Executive Director of the Four-County Labour Market Planning Board, regarding the labour pool in this local region. Some of the interesting facts we learned is that the unemployment rate of 4.8% in our region in 2014 was actually lower than the provincial rate of 7.3%. And I think quite a few of us were surprised by that fact, because I think the perception often is that unemployment is high in this region, but in fact we're doing a lot better than the provincial average is. There were some interesting details that several of our sectors, construction and manufacturing particularly, report discontent with the local workforce. They're looking for a slightly more highly trained and highly skilled workforce in this region. And half of the 160 businesses surveyed during the study found that some positions were hard to fill due to not enough applicants or not meeting attitude, motivation, or interpersonal abilities to hold the job. So it was very interesting, some of the details that we found during January 1st to March 31st of this year. There were 400 job postings in Owen Sound. Retail and healthcare had the highest job postings at 110 and 60 respectively. And what the study did find is that Owen Sound employers are seeking employees with higher levels of education, partly due to the healthcare job requirements. So all in all, it was a very interesting report that presented a lot of neat details for us as a committee. We had a quick report on angel investment networks, and for those who don't know what they are, angel investors are high net worth individuals who invest personal funds in businesses. And there are currently 12 regional angel groups with 700 members investing $67 million in 142 Ontario companies. So we are proceeding with inviting a member from one of these angel groups to come and address our committee and talk a little bit more about what's involved in starting up an angel investment group in this region. The other item that we dealt with, I brought forward a report on a workshop that myself and Mr. Furness and Dave Parsons attended in Hanover to examine OMAFRA's downtown revitalization program. They've run that program in Hanover to excellent use. Presently, or at least the day we were there for the tour, there were a sum total of 2 vacant stores in downtown Hanover. They've done a lot with the study. Now, some of what they've done, facade improvement program, for example, Owen Sound already has in place. But the committee thought that it would be appropriate to invite the DIA to get together with us in a special meeting and have a presentation on the OMAFRA program, and that meeting will be taking place this Friday morning at 8:30 at the Frog Pond. So that's sort of the sum up of what we did, and with that, I would like to move acceptance of those minutes.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none. Approval of the motion to approve the minutes? Oh, is there a question? No. Okay. Okay, all in favor? Good, carried, thank you. Next one is minutes of Financial Advisory Committee, Deputy Mayor Wright. If you want to take the chair, we'll switch and I can present the Financial Advisory Committee. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor
I had to
Wright.
think about that for a minute.
Finance Committee report from Tuesday, June 30th. We looked at the amount of money that will be debentured for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. It's approximately $16,500,000. We moved to borrow up to $9 million in 2015 with the repayments amortized over the next 20 years. We're moving ahead with that amount because interest rates probably aren't going to get any better, and it makes sense to do it now versus waiting to see if interest rates go up. We had a presentation which was quarterly, I think, of how our finances are. Directors monitor their managers in the area, keep them under supervision with regard to operating capital budgets. Generally, most divisions are operating at or near the budget. Clerk's department is under budget. WSIB is under budget. Property tax revenues, so where there's a reviews or applications to have their taxes reviewed and lowered, we hold a pool for that, and we may or may not have sufficient funds for that. We'll wait and see. Work road maintenance for the winter maintenance, the budget was $1.5 million, and to date, to March 31st, we have spent $1.2 million. So we haven't spent all the budget yet. As we have surpluses, some years we put them into an unallocated, or I think now an allocated reserve, strictly for that we can draw out if we go over budget. So we're in good shape there. Waste management is underspent at this time. Fire department is under budget. Frozen services. Funding is unexpected costs will come from a combination, I think Mr. Ritchie covered that already tonight, of reserves and reduction in other budget processes. I think one of the interesting things we had was a presentation from our purchasing, missed it maybe, our purchasing agent, procurement-related legislation. And so we talked about the ability to do buy local programs. I'm going off the top of my head, I think it was Hamilton Wentworth, but there was another community that took their case in front of the tribunal. I'll actually let you cover it there in a second. And we're told that they could not go to somebody local strictly because they were local. There's Court of Appeal and different case law that sets out that all purchasing must be fair, all purchasers must be treated fairly. Along with that, we've got free trade agreements that have been signed, in particular one recently with Europe, that states that you can't have a buy local component which would interfere with that free trade agreement and interfere with a contractor applying to bid for a contract in Canada and vice versa. We want our Canadian businesses to be able to go after contracts in Europe and States and elsewhere. So some of that information was a little bit new to us. We hope to have Ms. Hurd present to council at some point just the intricacies of the law of procurement and purchasing and do a presentation to all of us on a council night so that we and the public get to see the limits and the challenges. We also had a presentation from Mr. Walpole with regard to our connectivity of our various buildings in the city. We're paying approximately $57,000 per year for interlocation connectivity and connection to the internet. Mr. Walpole has a plan to try and do it better and reduce our costs, our annual costs, once we establish a new plan. And that's all the information that I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Acting Worship, I guess?
Whatever.
A comment and a question. My first one is about that procurement report that the mayor just discussed. Well, I'll tell you, that is an excellent report. We get asked all the time on our procedures and why we do this and why we don't do that. And the report from Ms. Hurd about, why can't we just buy local? Why can't we just pick any bidder? Why can't we, why do we have this long time consuming purchasing process? And that report answers all of those questions Exactly, and I would support her coming to council and making that presentation public, because, from time to time, we get criticism for those types of things, and what people have to realize is there's legal reasons behind a lot of those decisions. So that's just a comment. My second one, though, is my question about we're borrowing $9 million to Mr. Ritchie, and I guess my question is why the project's $16 million we'll need to finance. Why just 9 now? Why not the whole amount?
Thank you, Worship, and the committee had the same discussion, actually, and I would say that it's a bit of a hedge. Certainly, we're going to need the $9 million, as you heard from Mr. Prentice's report. We're going through roughly $2.5 million a month. We have been self-financing. We will not be able to do that throughout the rest of 2015. We're going to need to borrow. I mentioned the night at the committee that I didn't think interest rates could go down any farther. I'm happy to report that we can now get those funds for less than we did. Having said that, I'm hedging, I guess, against them going any lower. We borrowed the whole $18 million or $16.5 million in 2015. We don't need it all, so we'd be borrowing and paying somewhat for roughly $8 million we weren't using this year. And we'll certainly keep our eye on that market. If we sense, just as you do with your own home, that rates are going to go up quickly, we may calculate that it's quicker to borrow more. We have offer from Infrastructure Ontario to establish the line of credit for the whole $16 million, but only borrow what we need. So that's an option for us. So I would tell you it's a bit of a hedge against where they may go in the future. We'll be keeping our eye on it. If we see them going higher, we will. I might also mention we will be getting a quote from our bank as well. So there will be a competitive bid.
Any other questions? Are you moving these
So
minutes?
I move approval of those minutes, please.
All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Would you like to come back to the chair?
You look better than you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wright. What do we have left? Minutes of the Operations Advisory Committee. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Save the best for last. Our meeting from July 15th, we had an update on the city transit system, talked about the new routes. The transition has been going well despite some of the construction problems around town. There is a fare increase, has been passed by council already, that will take effect in January. 5 new bus shelters are in place, and that was about it for the transit. We did have a long discussion about mobility scooters on specialized transit bus. I think Councillor Lemon alluded to this earlier. All our buses are compliant with current legislation for accessibility. There has been a slight problem with some of the larger scooters not being able to turn around on those buses. So we did have one of the buses there. We had a citizen who had been concerned about it, actually was on the bus showing us the concerns. They're making some slight modifications to try and address that with some of the seats. Hopefully that'll work, but committee is recommending that we come up, as is common in a number of municipalities, limits on the size of scooters, because literally, as you see around town, some of the scooters are getting quite large. You can't, you just can't accommodate them all. We're also working with the local vendors to make them aware of our size restrictions that are coming into place, and also they're doing some training with some of the operators of the scooters and just how to work them properly and turning them around, backing them up, that type of thing. So we're hopeful that will address that problem. The issue of 11th Avenue East, parking in the 8 and 900 blocks, was back before the committee again. Council will remember this has been sort of an ongoing concern. We decided to, are recommending to council that at the operations meeting on October 21st, you might want to schedule that or circle that in your calendars, that we have invite the public to that meeting. We asked staff for a full comprehensive report on all the options dealing with on-street parking on that street, 11th Avenue East and 8 and 900 blocks, and we make a decision. We've sort of been waiting for certain things to fall into place and see if we might, if that might solve our problem. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So anyway, October 21st, the operations meeting will have the discussion then, and I'm anticipating a recommendation coming to council after that through the minutes. I'll skip one item, just I'll leave it for last. We had one other discussion From the Mr. Prentice, from the quarterly report for the wastewater treatment plant, we had no recorded bypasses in the first quarter, which is important to note publicly, I think. We talked about the frozen water mains already. Part of that strategy to pay for it is Mr. Becking's recommending about $600,000 worth of work that was budgeted in this year's budget be put off, and that money be allocated towards the towards that work. So we're out of a $2 million problem, they've had been able to find $600,000 in deferred work. Keep in mind, those items aren't going away, and they'll be back before us at budget next year and the year after. But anyway, that's how you would help pay for some of the immediate concern. The only other item, probably the biggest item on the docket, was a discussion around traffic on 10th Street. You'll recall during our River Precinct discussions and the traffic flow around the River Precinct area around City Hall and the library, that the consulting group, the traffic consultant that we had for that area, as they were dealing with that, noted that they had observed that 10th Street wasn't functioning. See if this sounds familiar to you. 10th Street is functioning poorly due to improper timing and coordination of signals. I think we've all heard that at one time or another, and this is what the traffic consultant brought forward to us sort of as part of that discussion. Committee asked staff to come back with a recommendation on how would we solve some of those problems, what would be the best way to solve them. Staff come back with us at this meeting with a recommendation that we get a traffic consultant to try and address these issues as soon as possible. The funding for that would be, I just don't see the amount, I think it was $30,000, is that right? Yeah, $30,000. The funding for that would not increase the budget, it'd come from the current budget. There were several traffic control items that were in the current budget that staff felt this was a more pressing issue, and they could defer those items and use that funding to go towards this issue. So committee, after lengthy discussion, there has been, the last traffic study on 10th Street was in 1998, 17 years old, and 17 years ago when that report was not fully implemented, and I'll say I wasn't on council at the time, but I think there were some political considerations perhaps. It wasn't, anyway, it wasn't fully implemented in 1998. So staff recommended that we hire this consultant to bring forward, do some traffic counts, bring forward their recommendations on how we might improve 10th Street in the near term as opposed to the long term. One concern that was raised, major concern that was raised, well, what about the ongoing construction, particularly 8th Street, and how that might affect this project or these results. Mr. Webb was there and Mr. Becking gave excellent answers. I think that first of all, the issue, we could put it off and wait till 8th Street was done, but we all know now that's not going to be till 2016 at the earliest. That issue, at least I feel, is one of importance that we need to tackle, and just putting it off for a year or year and a half is not really the way to go. And also, they do have some traffic counts for some intersections along the route over the past couple of years that they can take that information, take the new information, and hopefully come up with a design that works better. I don't think, with the restriction of the harbor, we're never going to have perfect traffic flow on 10th Street. It's just not going to happen. But can we make it better? I think anybody who's on 10th Street between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., particularly heading eastbound, will know that there's got to be something we can do the better. So anyway, after, as I said, lengthy discussion, the committee's recommending that we do move forward with that, hiring that consultant and that traffic, and he would come back with some recommendations. Last point on that would be that it could, we don't know, could involve some capital work as well. If we want to do capital work, buying new controllers or something like that, if that was one of the recommendations, that would need to come forward in the budget time in February. So I think the main message is timing is an issue here, and committee felt we needed to get moving on it as soon as possible. So anyway, that's the update on, that's the synopsis of the minutes, and I'd be happy to move the acceptance of those minutes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Body. I would ask that item 6 6F be tabled, as that is a recommendation from Operations Committee in response to an original motion that was sent to Operations and Planning and Heritage Committee on May 20th. And as that has not happened yet, not until September 3rd will Planning and Heritage get a chance to discuss this matter. I would wish to table item 6F until Planning is able to review it.
Going back to Councillor McManaman.
I would be opposed to that. Traffic control and traffic issues are the purview of the Operations Committee. I'm not aware if it was said to go to planning. I'm not sure why, but anyway, either way, I think it's a decision to be made by council.
So you're not accepting a friendly amendment?
No,
okay, so we will be voting on the minutes, and then thereafter we can make what decisions we need to, if it's voted up or down. Councillor Kepke was next.
I didn't really have anything to say, but I believe that Councillor Gregg moved a motion to table an item, so does that not take precedence?
But it was an item of it, not...
Correct, item 6F.
6F.
Right, you have to deal with that first.
Okay, so we've got a motion to...
I think I need a motion first to pull it from the minutes, and then a motion to table.
Yeah, I think you're right, Councillor Lemon, thank you.
I make a motion to pull it from the minutes first.
Well, just because Councillor Gregg has already started it,
Okay.
I don't want to put, we're going to end up with motions on top of motions. So Councillor Gregg, I'm going to ask you to amend your motion to, I guess, pull or hold off. Sorry?
Thank you, Mayor Body. I would make a motion to withdraw item 6F from the minutes to be voted on separately.
Be voted on separately. Okay, so there's the motion. Any discussion to that motion? Okay, questions? Go ahead.
I do have questions, but I guess I can wait until we're more just dealing with that issue.
Okay, so with regard to that motion to exclude 6F and to deal with it separately, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that is carried. Sorry? That's easiest, isn't it? So Councillor McManaman's motion to approve the remaining of the remainder of the minutes. Any other questions? Approval of those, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. Now we go back to 6F separately. I'm going back to Councillor Gregg.
I would motion item 6F to be tabled until Planning Committee has a chance to review the same recommendation as it came forward on May 20th in the original motion.
And can you help me out? That motion was made at council, at committee.
That motion was made May 20th at Operations, a joint Operations and Planning Heritage Committee. Planning did not have quorum, but that was a motion made during the committee that it go to, and that could be read for clarity. That in consideration of staff report CS 15066 and the presentations by Kim Allerton of Northwood and Associates and Mick Oliveira of MMM Group Limited, that OAC and CPAC recommend that staff bring back a report on the improvement of traffic flow on the 10th Street East. That is the original motion, and CPAC has not yet had a chance to review that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Stobo. We've got a joint meeting between two councils. One of the committees, sorry, between two committees. One of the committees does not have a quorum. Isn't this just a dog's breakfast? I'm going to go to Ms. Coulter, who might save us.
Your Worship, I attended that meeting that night in May, and it was intended as, and it was advertised as a joint meeting of Planning Committee with Operations in order that we could hear the recommendations of the consultant 3M on the traffic study with respect to the downtown river precinct. Because there were not sufficient members from the Community Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee, we convened the meeting and held it only as an Operations Advisory Committee. The CPAC members were invited to stay, however, they were not allowed any voting with respect to those minutes. So those May minutes from that meeting have been already approved by this council.
Okay, so the motion was approved by the sitting operations committee that did have quorum, came to council, was approved by council, so that motion would have been a sound motion that stands. Correct, that it goes back to both committees?
The motion, perhaps Councillor Gregg could read it again then.
That in consideration of staff report CS 15066 and the presentations by Kim Allerton of Northwood and Associates and Mick Oliveira of Triple M Group Limited, that OAC and CPAC recommend that staff bring back a report on the improvement of traffic flow on 10th Street East, and those minutes were accepted by this council.
And it isn't clear who it's to come back to, though. Hold on. Mr. Becking?
Your worship, traffic engineering is within the mandate of operations, and therefore it's notwithstanding the fact that it may have occurred as a part of a joint meeting. I think the intent, certainly the intent at the time, and certainly my recollection is that that operations staff would do a report and bring back a recommendation to operations with respect to the improvement of traffic along 10th Street.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Okay, Your Worship. Number one, it's a council decision as to who makes the decision, and that has already been done on May 20th. Second of all, a date was brought out that 8th Street's not going to be open until 2016. That is, I believe, what Councillor McMahon...
Hold on, let's focus.
Okay,
You're going off on a different tangent.
No,
Let's
no,
focus on this.
something that was said by the chair of the committee was, one of the reasons for going ahead now is we're not opening up 8th Street till 2016. And if you check the video record, you will see that that was said. I would like clarification.
Go ahead, Mr. Ritchie.
If I could, Your Worship, our indication at this time are that 8th Street will be open in 2015, towards the end of 2015. I believe the councillor was referring probably that the collection of a study from that information wouldn't be allowed until 2016, but I don't want to put words. But our indication at this time is that road will be open in 2015.
Okay, speaking to the situation, at the committee I voted against it, this motion, because right now...
Hold on, what's that got to do with the motion? I'm sorry, maybe I'm getting tired, maybe my day's been a little too long, but what's that got to do with the motion?
Well, the motion is to table, and I am agreeing with the table.
Okay, but we don't need to hear why you voted at the meeting or why. Like, that's got nothing to do with the table.
Okay, so we leave it, we have a motion
Fair
to
enough.
table.
You agree with me?
Yeah, but I just had to correct the error that was put out.
Given that there's confusion, we're going to go ahead with that motion, Councillor Gregg's motion, because I'm really not sure from reading it what committee it was supposed to go back to. Let's clarify it. Councillor Councillor Gregg's motion is that we table the 6F in there so it can go to planning, although it's not really within planning's mandate, but it goes to planning, and that's his motion. I'm going to call the question. Everyone in favor of that motion? 1, 2. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is defeated. Good. Thank you. Confusing.
Sounds a good motion.
Okay, go ahead.
My motion is to defer any action on the traffic study until 8th Street has been reopened and traffic patterns are reestablished. I honestly do not believe you're going to get solid data. As far as I'm concerned, we're taking $30,000 which we could use to pay something else down that we need. and wasting it on a consultant.
Okay, motion made by Councillor
Just
Lemon.
like, one other point here. If you do traffic counts now, they're going to be biased because of what exists in the community. Two major constructions. I feel this is a waste of taxpayers' money.
Thank you. Motion's on the table, motion's on the floor, so discussion. I think Councillor Thomas had his hand up first and Councillor Larry after.
Well, I just have a question about the scope of what we're talking about as a study. My understanding is we're going to take a look at the traffic lights and figure out how to make them work. Is that too simplistic a view of what we're talking about here? I didn't get the impression that we were doing a full-on total traffic study of 10th Street, but we're trying to figure out how to make it work better.
Councillor, sorry, Mr. Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. The study consists of two components. First is a collection of traffic data. We, as part of the River Precinct work, collected fall traffic volumes, actually late fall, so they would be more akin to winter traffic volumes. As I'm sure everyone will appreciate, the traffic changes significantly on 10th Street from summer to winter, or summer to late fall. So what is proposed is to firstly collect summer traffic data, and then that information, along with the previously collected traffic data, will be used and analyzed in order to develop a progression analysis of the signals and how they have to be set and offset from one another in order to move traffic along 10th Street more efficiently.
Okay.
Follow that up, please. So I think that, part of the issue here is that many of us running in the election heard from the public time and time again, too many consultants, too many consultants, too many consultants. And while I do, in a sense, agree that that could be the case at times, I don't think that there's any question that 10th Street is a serious issue. Now, I have made a practice over the years of completely avoiding 10th Street at all times until the 8th Street construction began, and it's now virtually impossible to avoid 10th Street if you want to get around town. Summer traffic volumes have always been an issue on 10th Street in the 30 years that I've lived in Owen Sound. Everybody knows that. Everybody comes through there, and it's always bumper to bumper for the 9 minutes of Owen Sound's traffic rush. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. So, on the one hand, I guess that, I understand the no more consultants, but on the other hand, 10th Street is a mess, and I think it's got to be addressed. So I'm certainly going to support moving forward with the study.
Thank you. Councillor Larry next.
I suppose it's a matter of opinion, but I drive 10th Street 6-8 times a day at all different times, and I don't see 10th Street as a problem. When we have construction, as we do right now, 10th Street's a problem. When it rains out, everyone comes from Salvo Beach, 10th Street's a problem. I just don't like the way this was done. This consultant was working on something else, and oh, by the way, did you know that 10th Street isn't operating properly? And we push the big red button and we're going to pay $30,000. I'm in favor of Councillor Lemon's motion. I don't think we should be doing this at all. And what I read is this guy wants to do a traffic study, and he can allow for the construction being done on 8th Street. I'm not buying that. I just think it's a bad idea. If we need to do something with 10th Street when we have no construction, that's fine. But I drive 10th Street a lot. I was born and raised here. I don't need one guy from Toronto coming up and telling me that 10th Street isn't working properly.
Councillor Kapke.
I would just query that how you, given the timing of the season now, how you would ever get summer traffic counts now.
Mr. Becking.
Well, we would, if council approves the retention of the consultant, the work will go ahead and the traffic counts will be done this month.
To me, it's still not true summer traffic, because it can't happen till at least next council meeting, right? You have to approve who the consultant would be.
No.
By
that's-
tender?
That's already been decided.
Okay.
Councillor Craig?
I would just like to mention my support of the motion. I think it's akin to doing a traffic study in 9th Avenue East right now because it's a detour route in planning for future construction of 2,000 homes north of Malibu Hill. Could it happen? Could. Could you spend money on it right now for traffic? Good, because everybody's using it for a detour. But I would like to mention right now, I would vehemently disagree with our Director of Operations that traffic is only in the purview of operations. It absolutely is within other mandates. And I'm going to liken it to the town of Collingwood when they developed the new expressway. Collingwood's downtown, and Collingwood was vehemently opposed to that expressway continuing to Blue Mountain and circumventing that town. So anything that is done to expedite traffic flow downtown, while it is good for some people, it is not pursuing active transportation as alternative methods, and it is in some ways, I think, alienating our downtown and not benefiting it.
Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Here's a question. I just have a question here. Since the report wasn't added to the minutes here about the 1998 study because it was just requested, can someone give us a general idea? Was it the 1998 study? Did it state that there was a problem on 10th Street Hill? Was there a problem on 10th Street?
Mr. Becking?
Yes.
So you're saying for 17 years, there's been a problem on 10th Street, and we're going to say that there isn't a problem? 17 years ago, there was a problem, and we're going to say now, when you can look at people that are halfway up 10th Street West Hill, who can't get down there between 8:30 and 9 o'clock to go through this 9 minutes of traffic, and it's been on there for 17 years? What the heck? Like, that's... I would support it. $30,000 to find out what we can do, to how to make that easier for our public, whether you're a tourist, whether you are a citizen. If that's what you're going to have to make it accessible for this population, then that $30,000 is worth it.
I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor Wright last, and then I'm going to call the question.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to call the question.
I believe that a lot of our problems are caused by the 8th Street closure right now, but they're also caused because we only have so many bridges that cross the river, and there's only so many routes through the city. But do you know those lights are synchronized? Because I can come from 4th Avenue, and I can come straight through to 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue West, come straight through to 3rd Avenue East and make a turn and not have to stop at one stoplight. I can come straight through there. Going the other way, I can do the same thing. If I hit the light right at 3rd Avenue and turn, I can go through. I don't see the need. I think the problem, and I noticed that there was a police officer on the corner of 3rd Avenue and 10th Street the other day. It happens at both 2nd Avenue West and 10th Street and 3rd Avenue East and 10th Street, where people block the lanes of traffic, where you cannot get through. They turn and they block the lane because they're stuck at a red light. They've got signs at all those corners, do not block intersection, but people keep blocking the intersection, therefore causing a really bad delay in traffic. If we can get police, perhaps the police service board members could report that, a little more cognizant of being there to stop those people we can, and I'm going to support Councillor Dunn.
Okay, Councillor Lemon, new stuff and very
Yes.
brief, please.
We have had, since when I was a reporter and on council, I think 4 traffic studies, or 5, and we still have some issues. I don't think doing a survey right now is appropriate. I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money, and we can't afford it.
Covered that. Okay, I'm going to call the question.
Recorded vote, please.
Hold on. We need a clarification of the motion, please.
Through you, Your Worship, the motion that I have on the floor is that no traffic study respecting the 10th Street corridor be undertaken until the construction of the 8th Street Hill is complete. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor McManaman.
Clarification, so what happens when it is complete? Then a traffic study would move forward?
No, it will come back to this council to make a decision.
Thank you.
Council always has that prerogative.
Okay, I'm going to... Jeff, did you get that?
Sorry, Your Worship, what was the last bit?
Councillor Lemon, I'm going to get you to word it again with your extra sentence you just added on there.
Okay, the motion is to table any action on this or consideration of this until such time as the 8th Street Hill is complete and 8th Street East Hill has been completed and open. At that time, council can make a further decision to see if a traffic study is needed.
So you're asking for it to come back to council at that time?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of that motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is carried.
Thank you.
Now, Councillor Lemon wants that recorded.
It's not necessary, Your Worship.
You're withdrawing that request? No,
Yeah, I
you
will
got your way?
withdraw it.
It's for recorded vote then.
Okay, thank you. It's still a recorded vote. Please go ahead.
Councillor Lemon,
In favor?
Councillor Dodd,
Opposed?
Councillor Thomas,
Opposed?
Councillor Wright.
In
I'm sorry,
favor.
Deputy Mayor
In
Wright.
favor.
Councillor Kepke,
In favor.
Councillor O'Leary,
In favor?
and Councillor McManaman,
Opposed.
and Councillor Gray.
In favor?
And the mayor is voting on this.
Opposed. Thank you.
6 in favor and 4 opposed.
Good, thank you. That doesn't add up. It should be 5 and 4, right?
I'm sorry, 5 in favor,
Good.
4 opposed.
I was going to say that we increased council and
Thank you very much. 11D, minutes of in-camera for meetings for approval. There is no minutes. We're down to other business, and if I may just change the order, since I've got 2 reports and I hadn't gone to Mr. Becking first, I'm going to go to staff first, if everyone's okay with that. Mr. Becking, you have 2 items.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item relates to purchase of lands from S. Newton in order to accommodate the remedial measures on the 8th Street Hill. The recommendation is to have a resolution authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute all documents pursuant to the agreement of purchase and sale. Council will recall that we have adopted a remedial strategy to deal with the slide area. That will impact on 2 properties, 805 5th Avenue A East and 560 8th Avenue East. We have, because the remedial measures cannot be contained within the existing right-of-way, we require a triangle of land from Ms. Sarah Newton, owner of 560 8th Avenue, 8th Avenue, or 8th Street East. It represents roughly 720 meters in size. We did consider 3 options, including the construction of a retaining wall, some mechanical slope stabilization based on a 1-to-1 slope, and property acquisition. Property acquisition proved to be the most expedient and cost-effective approach to dealing with the matter. There is a sketch attached to the report, which is awfully grainy, but you'll notice the triangle of land at the bottom of the figure, the bottom half of the figure, and very faintly you can see where the toe of slope line is proposed as a result of the remedial strategy.
Okay, Councillor Kepke?
I'll move for the recommendation contained in the report.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Mr. Becking, your second report there.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council will recall, staff were directed to obtain more information on the Ontario Municipal Cycling Infrastructure Program and to look at it with the possibility of applying to the program for funding for some of our capital works in the 2016 fiscal year. From our research, the program does exist. It was announced in July of this year. It's a $10 million program administered by MTO with the objective of improving existing and building new cycling infrastructure, and I emphasize the word cycling infrastructure. It's very focused on cycling infrastructure. Under the program, projects that qualify will be eligible for 50% of the cost of the project, up to a maximum of $325,000, and the works have to be completed between April 1st of 2016 and March 31st of 2018. Based on our understanding of the program and the understanding of our capital works for the foreseeable future, we are not proposing to create any new cycling infrastructure, nor are we expanding the roadways to provide additional cycling capacity. So on that basis, our projects would not qualify under the program.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas?
I'd move to receive the report.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Going to go to Ms. Coulter on B hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just an update, the city had received an appeal of a decision of this council to approve a zoning bylaw amendment to permit medical marijuana production facilities in the M1 and M2 zones. A hearing was held in this council chambers this past Wednesday. The OMB did render an oral decision at the end of the day, and the decision denied the appeal of the city's zoning bylaw and ordered that bylaw 2015-28 come into force and effect on that day last Wednesday.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you very much. I wonder, through you, Your Worship, if I could ask Ms. Coulter, what was the cost to the city to hold that hearing?
Through you, Your Worship, our costs would be our legal representation in preparation for and at the hearing. We don't have the bill for last month at this time. I would just be estimating, but probably between $5,000 and $10,000, as well as staff time to prepare for the hearing.
Thank you.
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship, and this is what I was going to bring up under other business, but I just wanted to congratulate staff and our legal rep, Mr. Elston. I attended part of the hearing. I know other councillors did as well, and you know, our staff was just top-notch in their preparation, in their execution of our argument, and anyway, they should be congratulated for that, because it was, you know, the binders that were prepared were, you know, and you know, afterwards to hear the person who brought the hearing forward saying, you know, he was taking a bit of a flyer or something like that. That was the words he used. You know, as Councillor Wright has just, or Deputy Mayor Wright has said, that's a $5,000 to $10,000 hit to the taxpayer. But anyway, that's the system we've got, and staff should be congratulated for a good job on that and moving forward with an important, potentially important business in Old Sound.
Thank you. Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you, Worship. I think Ms. Coulter has underestimated the amount of effort she put into this. She would have significant hours of her time to make sure that this the city was represented correctly.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just, through you again to Ms. Coulter, have you any idea when they will get going on the plant then? I understand all the permits are in place.
Through you, Your Worship, our understanding from Canadian Bioceutical is that their application before the federal government is pending. So I'm not sure what the federal election will do to those applications, but we understand things are still being approved.
One of the conditions pending was this OMB hearing, was it not? And, well, we'll wait and see. Given that it's not parliamentarians that make the decision on approval, I would hope that the process would continue. Good. Thank you very much. Good work on that. Councillor Kepke, staff appreciation.
Thank you. I would ask that the Director of Community Services extend appreciation to the staff that look after all the flowers in Owen Sound. The bridges are certainly beautiful, and lots of comments received on the bridges, as well as flowers at Harrison Park and in and around Owen Sound. So please extend that appreciation.
Perfect, yeah. I'm getting a lot of comments on the bridges especially. Great year for them. Thanks. Councillor O'Leary, question in consulting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question for Mr. Becking. I know we've talked a lot tonight about consultants. Mr. Prentice touched on this, and I'm referring to the email that you sent out earlier last week, where a consultant made a $60,000 mistake. Is there any accountability? Do we have any way of going back on a consultant when they make a mistake like that? Or, as you called it, an oversight?
I think you have to distinguish a mistake from an omission. A mistake, yes, we can go after them, and we can get a monetary judgment from them, or alternatively, we can pursue them through the professional association and have them brought up on disciplinary matters. In the case at hand, the consultant was required to undertake certain works as part of the class environmental assessment for the project. Some of those works were not undertaken, and as a consequence, we required the piles. Now, we would have required the piles regardless of whether the consultant had done the work or not. So it's, the city has an obligation to pay for works that are properly done on its behalf. Where there was an acknowledgement of responsibility was in the fact that the consultant accepted responsibility for 50% of the cost of the additional works. On a go-forward basis, I share concerns that have been expressed by many members of council with respect to not only the accountability for consultants, but also the accountability for contractors and other providers of services and goods to the city. The way that this is typically handled is through performance evaluations at the end of each assignment, and that data would then be used in determining whether future works would be given to that particular service provider. So we will be implementing a strategy in this year for doing precisely that. And if a service provider's performance is substandard, we do have the ability to suspend them from participating in future works of the city for a period of time, which could be anything from 1 year to 5 years. So that's how accountability is enforced through the tendering process. This is a strategy that's commonly used throughout many jurisdictions in the province, including the province itself, and we've already implemented it on a couple of contracts that frankly we had substandard performance on last fall and winter, and some of those contractors will not be working for the city again for at least a couple of years.
Right. I just wondered about having something right in a contract where, you know, you've got them pinned down in case of such a thing, but I guess it's not comparable. I just think, like, if I'm building a house and my contractor tells me at the end, and I have a contract, that he forgot to allow for carpet and I owe him $6,000, I'd be saying, sorry about your luck. And that's...
It depends on, your worship, it depends on the nature of the contract. You can have a total stipulated price contract, which says that you agree to provide certain things for a fixed amount. And if somebody misses something, then you can legitimately say, sorry, but we're not going to pay any more. The only time when you can do those things, do that kind of a contract, is when you have all of the details are known at the beginning of the contract. Given the nature of the work that my department does, that isn't always possible, and I'll give you a classic example. Tonight, council approved the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West. We know that there's a storm sewer, a sanitary sewer, and a water main in that ground. We know certain other details, what is below the surface. But that road has probably been in place for in excess of 100 years, and I can assure you we don't have 100 years worth of records. If the contractor were to go in there and all of a sudden find a manhole that nobody knew about and was right in the way of the pipe, would it be fair to that contractor to say, well, you bid X number of dollars, $456,000 for the project, and notwithstanding the fact that that's additional work, we're not going to pay you. Fortunately, we can't do that because of the nature of the general conditions of contract.
Right, you're dealing with unknowns, but that's good. I appreciate those comments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, thanks. Councillor Gregg, you had 2 comments.
Thank you, Mayor. My first comment is regarding back in January, 3, myself included, of us new councillors attended a New Councillors Day at the Inn on the Bay, and it was sponsored by AMO. So this is why I'm bringing it up tonight, because I know many of you are going to the AMO conference next week. And we sat in for one day, and we listened to 2 individuals, neither of whom had ever been elected in their life, tell or educate us on how to become good councillors. When I got my expense report, I learned that day cost the taxpayers of Owen Sound $812 for my participation in it. So over $2,400 for us 3 to go to that one-day seminar at the Inn on the Bay in a room that costs $195 to rent for a day. So when you are at AMO, I wonder if we can pursue the fact that the real mandate of AMO should be to be a voice for the taxpayer and not the type of pickpocketing that seemed to occur on the training day which we were at, because that is in a room where there was approximately 20 councillors. That's somewhere like $18,000, $17,000 for that one-day seminar for those 20 councillors. And something doesn't seem right there, and I just would like the taxpayers of Owen Sound to know that lunch was not that good. Secondly, and further to using AMO as a potential voice, Owen Sound is going to be part of municipalities everywhere. And I think we have missed the boat on being part of consultations which occurred early in 2015, where the Ontario government held consultations with regional and community roundtables in 10 communities, sector-specific roundtables consisting of low-income stakeholders, not-for-profit associations, businesses, young professionals, and the self-employed, ongoing discussions with technical experts and advisors, and I'm reading from the Ontario Registered Pension Plan website. Nowhere does it say they consulted with municipalities. And my opinions on this pension plan aside, the net effect that this pension plan has on the taxpayer of Owen Sound, when applied to an approximately $18 million payroll per year, is over a 1% tax hike every year on the taxpayers of Owen Sound. People who cannot afford it, they already are struggling with the current cost of living. That is the problem for these people. Not go in the direction here where the government is, that's just unheard of. That's $1 million for this council to have to account for from taxpayers over 3 years. We didn't put a shovel in the ground, fix a pipe, it didn't pave a road, didn't provide another firefighter, didn't provide another police officer to investigate the disgust that occurred this morning. And I think it should be something that AMO works on our behalf immediately to look for a resolution or to provide some input on the net effect on our municipality, on our inability to pay. So I wonder if I could have some experienced suggestions maybe from those that are going to AMO. Is there a forum which we can bring or raise such a matter?
Deputy Mayor Wright?
Yes, there certainly is a forum that questions can be asked of Cabinet at the AMO conference. I believe it's Tuesday afternoon. But the other thing is I'm quite sure that the Ontario pension is, I know that the county has requested that OPSU not be included, but it has come to my understanding that the pension is for those that do not have a company pension at this time. And I think that needs to be clarified as well, so that those that are already getting a pension we will not have to put an additional pension on. I'm not saying I'm for or against the pension. I just am just suggesting that, but there is a forum there to do that. And that question will be asked by the county.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wright. I think that sounds very positive, because that kind of clarification is exactly what I think is needed on this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon, with regard to Friday?
Yes, Your Worship, it was an outstanding event. The weather was most cooperative, and the number of people downtown was huge. It was amazing to see how many people were out for this. And the comment I heard, they'd like to see at least 2 or 3 car shows a year downtown, because people can walk around and actually see the cars. I don't know how it affected businesses, but it exposed more people to downtown, and that's positive. And I'm going to be suggesting that the DIA consider working with the First Friday group about having a good old-fashioned street dance, which we used to have all the time. And the other comment I would make is we had a lot of good music going on downtown. And just for council's edification, when the big dig was done, downtown was partially wired and conduit was put in so that we can have sound on the streets as much as we want or as little as we want. And I think that's something we should be exploring next year with the DIA, because if the conduit's in and part of the wire's in, the cost is merely some speakers, and there's actually a wire into City Hall where the music could come from. And so at Christmas time, we could have Christmas music, and for, well, if they do a Cajun grilling competition downtown, they get Cajun music, whatever. But it really made the downtown alive. I think we've got to think outside the box to get more people coming downtown.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to take a second of council's time here just to recognize one of our local athletes who's down down in the 2015 Para-Pan American Games. Jason Crone has been there in the past. He's won a bronze medal when in Beijing, and he's also won a silver medal in the London Paralympic Games. So Jason is a guy I've known for my entire life, basically. He became paralyzed actually during a hockey game when he was 15, and he kind of went into it after, and now he's playing wheelchair rugby. So he did retire after the London Games and came out of retirement to play down in here in Toronto, play on Canadian soil. So I just wanted to take a second just to recognize him and wish him good luck, and that the city's behind him on what he's doing. And nevertheless, that's a huge success story for this community.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas, 2 items.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. The first one, I'd just like to remind people that there are still raffle tickets available for the CN Dining Car draw, which will be held on September 19th in the CN Dining Car, which I'm happy to announce tonight will be moved to the train tracks next week on Monday the 17th. So we will certainly, I don't have a time at present. Unfortunately, I'll be at AMO and I'm going to miss all the excitement. But we will certainly be in touch with the media, or the Community Waterfront Heritage Center will, to let them know at what time that move will be taking place.
Time and route, that'd be interesting for a lot of people.
I don't know any of that presently, but we can certainly find that out.
Cool.
The other item I just wanted to make a quick mention of was the Bayshore Race in support of the Owen Sound Regional Hospital Foundation, which is coming up on August 23rd, the Sunday morning of Summerfolk this year. Many people will know that the foundation raises money all year long to fund capital expenditures at the hospital. The province only pays for operational costs, and any capital work that's done at our hospital, the purchase of equipment or renovations, for example, like those that are going on at the new oncology department, are all paid for by fundraised dollars. And so the Bayshore Race, which this year will be held on the Inner Harbor because of construction out on East Bayshore Road, will be held on the 23rd, and people looking for more information on the run can go to bayshorerace.ca. But they typically expect somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 runners at that race, and it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Wright.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Two things, just the consent agenda. On tonight's consent agenda, there were 6 items listed that that we didn't need to deal with, period, and one that was had some information in it. But I just would like to ask through you to the Director of Planning. Perhaps we don't need to see these. We get them sent to us in email, and if there's any comments or anything, we mail them back. But if there's no comments to be made, it seems to me that there's really no necessity to put them on our open agenda. Perhaps you could just look into that and see about, I know we have a policy on that, but I don't think that's included in our policy. The second thing that I have is on the AMO conference. I'm not sure whether all of us are going or whether some of you are going. I'm going through the county, but and I believe the mayor is going through the county as well. That saves the city tax dollars. And I just feel that it's very expensive. The hotel rooms are costly. The registration is not as expensive as what your one day was. I'm very surprised at that. I'd be checking that out. But I think about the travel time. It's a fair distance away. We do have a travel policy that we pay the cheapest way, and sometimes the cheapest way is car rental. And so I'd suggest if you're driving by yourself, the car rental is the cheapest way for you to drive, because I believe that's all you can claim, isn't it, is the price of car rental. The other thing is, I believe we should be carpooling, so if you can join up with someone, please let's have a talk about that. Perhaps a van rental where most of us can drive down together would even be a suggestion. The travel costs are not only the mileage that you're traveling, but it's $25 a day to park your vehicle down there. So that's be quite a savings, and considering that each councillor has a budget, the max of $3,000 to spend a year, you're taking you're either going to go over your budget, or you're going to take an awful lot of a chunk out of your budget by going by yourself and paying the rates by yourself. So could we
I wonder if anyone that's going would email Deputy Mayor Wright, and she can sort out maybe that's easy. They're going to send you saying we're all going on the same
Yes,
day.
I can. If you want to email me, I'll make arrangements for the travel together. We go down Sunday, and I believe it starts with the reception put on by or perhaps the city manager would like to.
We might have to be careful with it, but go ahead.
Your Worship, I could certainly offer the services of our executive assistant to perhaps try to coordinate this.
Oh, maybe get Sharon to do it.
Sure.
Then you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Yep, that makes sense. So if you want to send an email to Sharon, and she'll decide who's sitting in which seat of which car at which time, and et cetera.
Okay.
Good thinking.
Thank you.
What's left? I guess my 2 items. So one was, and Councillor Kepke raised this a couple of months ago, either at a meeting or just a direct email, I can't remember. October 19th is a federal election. We now know that for sure. We have a council meeting planned that night, which probably doesn't make sense to do it. We should move it week ahead, week after. Staff want to look into that and answer back in a couple of weeks when once we look at it. Other question, which I think is probably for Mr. Smith, is we talked at the last meeting about our results of speaking to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. I received lots of emails and lots of ideas that were everything from having a barbecue to try and raise funds, which I don't think would be enough, to doing a lottery. And I didn't take the suggestion seriously right off the bat, because I was thinking you'd have to have a $10,000 ticket to start to raise money. But I can remember years ago the Legion was built with a 50-50 draw that was monthly. Are we allowed to do that? Can municipalities run a lottery of some sort? Any idea how that would work, or can we find out?
Through your worship, the AGCO, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, has guidelines, and they state that a municipality is not eligible for a raffle license.
So that kiboshes that idea. I just wanted to ask, because it was an idea that is worth considering. Okay, I think that completes everything in our other business. Ask if number 13, motion that the committee rise and report.
Motion that the committee rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Resolution adopting proceedings of the committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thomas.
You can't write.
That the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Notice of motion, I understand there's none. New business by resolution, seeing none. Bylaws, Mr. Smith, if you can give us a bit of an overview of what is there in the bylaws.
Through your worship, there are 11 bylaws on tonight's council agenda for consideration. One is to confirm the business of this meeting. One is to adopt the grants policy as amended by council at their last meeting. And we have 9 bylaws to finalize agreements already authorized by council. For a collective agreement with QP 443, facade and structural improvements agreement at 215 8th Street West, tender T1507 for the 6th Avenue West water main and sanitary sewer replacement, the 25th annual Owen Sound Fall Classic Slow Pitch Tournament, 3 lease agreements with Transport Canada for the Kelso Beach Bridge, Kelso Beach Park and boat launch facility, 1 lease of agricultural land at the former Juneau landfill, and 1 lease with the Community Waterfront Heritage Center amendment.
Good, thank you. Motion?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, that bylaw numbers 2015-104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, and 112, 113, and 114 be passed and enacted.
And all in favor? That is carried. And I suppose the next time we meet, summer folk will have gone by. 40th anniversary, I knew they're doing a special concert on the Thursday night as well as all weekend. Huge lineup, pretty impressive, and I think their ticket sales are going well. Crafts are always pretty cool, so hope to see everybody there, and we'll see you here, I don't know when, the next meeting. That concludes all of our matters for tonight, all of our business, so we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.